Good evening, folks.
Hey, Dave.
Hey, Dave. Oh, my video is not. User error. Here I am.
There you are. Just about everyone's here, just looking audio for Chip and Jim and Mickey. So we'll give it another minute, get everyone connected.
Chip will be about 5 more minutes.
Oh, okay. You're his, you're
I'm his secretary.
his Secretary of Tax Administrative Support. Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm his
Thank-
admin, and he just got home, so
Okay.
he'll
Thank
be
you.
there shortly.
Thank you. All right, Mickey, you're here. Let's see. Jim, you here? There you are. Welcome. All right. Everyone's ready. I think we can get started. We'll take care of the some administrative things up front as usual, and by then hopefully Chip will be with us and we can proceed. So good evening, everyone. Call this meeting to order for the Town of Wakefield Board of Appeals. Oh, I got to start the captions. Sorry. Captions are on. Okay, we'll start again. Good evening, everyone. We'll call this meeting to order for the Town of Wakefield Board of Appeals for May 10th, 2023, with a roll call of members. Jim McBain.
Here.
Joe Pride.
Here.
Tom Losi.
Here.
Greg McIntosh.
Here.
Mickey Feely.
Here.
Kasumi Humphries.
Yeah.
And we believe Chip Tarbell will be with us shortly. We'll acknowledge him when he is officially online with us. And Chair Dave Hatfield is present. Legal notice, Joe, if you would be so kind.
All right, consistent with the governor's orders extending certain provisions of the open meeting law, every effort will be made to allow the public to view and or listen to this meeting in real time. If you don't have a camera or microphone on your computer, you may use the following dial-in number 1-301-715-8592, meeting ID 839-8242, 3726, passcode 832230. Please only use dial-in or computer and not both, as audio feedback will distort the meeting. This meeting will be audio and video recorded in compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act. This location is accessible to people with disabilities. Wakefield provides reasonable accommodations and or language assistance free of charge upon request. If you're a person with a disability and require information on or materials in an alternate format, or if you require any other accommodation, please contact the town's disability coordinator, William Renault, town engineer, at 781-246-6308 as far in advance of the event as possible. Every effort will be made to grant your requests. Advance notification will enable the town to make reasonable arrangements to remove an accessibility barrier for you. 1, continued hearings. 2, 23-80, Nathaniel D. and Elizabeth H. Ferraria, application for a determination and or finding with respects to a continuation and extension of non-conforming uses under Article 9, Section 190-50 of the Wakefield zoning bylaw to allow the construction of additions onto a 2-family dwelling. This property is shown as map 12, lot parcel 008 of the assessors map, and is located at 33 Emerson Street. 3, 23-81, James and Rochelle Owens, application for a determination and or finding with respects to a continuation and extension of a non-conforming use under Article 9, Section 190-50 of the Wakefield zoning bylaws to construct an addition onto a single-family dwelling. This property is shown as map 28, lot parcel 16D of the assessors map, and is located at 1 Harrison Lane. 4, 23-82, 360 Water Street Revocable Living Trust, application for a variance under Article 10, Section 190-66 of the Wakefield zoning bylaw. Application is reconstructing a single-family dwelling that was destroyed by fire as allowed by right pursuant to Article 9, Section 190-53 of the Wakefield zoning bylaw. As part of the reconstruction, the applicant desires to add a third story that does not meet the requirements under Article 6 and Table 2 of the Wakefield zoning bylaw. The property is shown as map 31, lot parcel AJ 17 of the assessors map, and is located at 360 Water Street. Board of Appeals.
Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
Chip, are you with us? Not yet, apparently. Okay. So we'll do a couple of administrative things. Attorney Brian McGrail, dated May 10th, regarding Granite's Family Trust LLC, 314, 330, and 336 Salem Street, Wakefield, Mass. Case numbers 23-43 through 50. Requesting that we continue the matter to our May 24th, 2023 meeting, in that they're still in the process of reviewing drainage with the town engineer. Also, confirming that the applicant has agreed to extend the time for the board to render and file any decisions through August 30th, 2023.
I move we continue to May 24th and accept the extension.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? All right, voting members and Greg. Tom,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So that this matter will be on our May 24th agenda. Next, from Attorney Brian McGrail, dated May 10th, 2023, regarding Dana Rodriguez, 377 Main Street, Wakefield, Mass. Case number 23-51. Question that we continue the meeting, continue this matter meeting on May 24th, 2023, and they're still in the process of reviewing options.
I move we continue to May 24th.
Seconded.
Any discussion? So, Brian, we're continuing this several times now. Is there light at the end of the tunnel? I just have to ask.
Hold on. Yeah, I think so. We're finalizing a couple of designs, and then we're probably gonna circle back to Jim through design review. That's probably gonna happen, I'd say, early next week. And because this is in the overlay district, so the design review kind of rejected at first, so I'm thinking that they might need to look at it again.
Okay.
I mean, it's up to you guys how you want to handle that, but
Well, on that point, basically, since it's entirely sort of a new design, our recommendation to the board may be different.
that's right.
But I would agree, go back through design review and then
So
proceed
you
back
might
there. I
you
just-
might have one more continuance for that to happen.
Understood. Just want to understand where things stood, just
Yeah.
Given the nature of the multiple constituencies and anyone else in the public who may be curious. Okay, thank
Yep.
you. Any other discussion on the motion, board members? All right, same voting members. Tom,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes,
Greg,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So that matter will also be on our May 24th agenda. So Brian, do you want to,
Yeah, I think I should take,
maybe we could do do you want to do the other matters first? If-
yeah, I think we should. Yeah, I think they're gonna be pretty straightforward.
And then we'll circle back to the top of the agenda and the continued hearings. Okay.
Yep, that's fine.
All right, so the first other matter on our agenda dealt with case number 22-16, 17, 18, and 19, 347, 357 Main, and 3 Chestnut Street Savings Bank to discuss a final certificate of occupancy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The Savings Bank, I had a discussion with you on this. They've received a temporary occupancy permit from the building inspector. They are completely done. Landscaping is all done. The landscaping is all done on the neighbor's property, which was part of the project. If you might remember that they put a fence up for the neighbor and did a lot of landscaping. I emailed photos of that because they were traveling. They saw the photos. They were thrilled. And I think Mr. Tabell's had an opportunity to go by. So I think we're looking for a letter to the building inspector for the board to confirm to him that you're all set as far as you are concerned, for him to issue final CO when he's ready to do so.
Yeah, and Chip was part of that conversation, so I got firsthand that he did go by and verify that things seem to be satisfactory in his mind, and so I'm good. I know he's not here yet, but I can attest that that's what he reported to both of us. So board members, the standard practice, again, when we're at the end of one of these, if folks are comfortable, if you've been by it and seen it, I've driven by and seen it. You know, I think we're there, and I see no problem moving forward with a letter as Brian has requested.
Dave, I'm here.
Hey, welcome.
Thank
Now you
you.
can speak. And so for the record, Chip Tarbell has joined the meeting. Welcome.
And everything you just said is accurate.
Thank you.
Not to repeat.
So if there's no concerns, board members, I think it's just a motion to have me pen that letter, and I'll work with Brian offline. We'll get it sent over.
I move that we authorize the chair to give the letter for the certificate of occupancy.
Second.
Any discussion? Well, point of order. We're not telling him to issue. That's his discretion. We're saying they've met our condition. They've met our conditions. And
Right. Okay,
just, yeah,
that's a friendly amendment, so.
okay.
Second amendment motion.
Thank you. Any discussion on that? All right, regular voting members. Chip,
Can I vote? Sure. Yes.
Tom,
Yes,
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes,
and I vote yes. All right, that's unanimous. So Brian, we'll get that penned up and get over there.
Yep,
Are they ready to open?
they're already in there.
No, I know they got their temper, like actually open the door and conduct business. in the
Yes.
Newport. Yeah.
Yes,
they're ready.
they're thrilled with how it came out. They love it. So
Looking forward to seeing it.
it's gonna serve them well.
All right, the next other matter was 8 Albion Street, pre-app site plan waiver request.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Attorney Brian McGurl representing Vizeth Chum. Vizeth is on the Zoom tonight. This is a fairly straightforward request. It involves 8 Albion Street, as you had mentioned. Vizeth has leased the property there. He's going to open a business by the name of Boba Tea Cafe. Boba Tea is becoming very popular across the country. That's a franchise nationwide, and really some exclusive tea drinks with fruit mixes and pastries, and so I think it's going to be a really good addition to downtown Wakefield. And our request tonight is basically for the board to give a waiver of the site plan requirement under 19045E, because 8 Albion Street is basically a building with no lot. I can just quickly share this with you. This is the building that we're talking about. It's a former location of a barber shop. There was a jewelry store in here for years. This is the Rockland Trust building on the corner of Main and Albion. So this is right at the beginning of downtown as you head off of Main Street on the left-hand side. As you can see, there is no site. It's a building. Part of what's going to happen here, we'll be applying for, this will be classified by the building inspector as fast food. So we need a fast food special permit, would normally require site plan approval, and we just don't see the need for the site plan. I think the biggest aspect of this is going to be the signage, which will be going to the design review board because they have jurisdiction, because it's kind of a unique building to figure out how to work the signage for the business with this kind of funky roof. I think I might have already mentioned the windows are going to be opened up compared to what's there. These were more conducive for a jeweler that had been in there for quite some time. So pretty straightforward request. We'd like a waiver of site plan where there is no site. It's only a building.
Go ahead, Chip. Did you have
Yeah,
something?
Mr. Chair, the only question and concern I have is where, it was a barber shop and now it's going into more of a food and establishment. Although I agree that there's no site, I would like to at least know that the town engineer, that we know where the sewer is and that it's big enough and can handle it. So how do we get that information without a site review?
Well, he'll still have chance to comment under the special permit. That's not an issue. But it might make you feel better, Mr. Tabell. There is gonna be no kitchen. It's really drinks and prepared pastry type delicacies that are brought in off-site. They're not made on site. So there'll be no cooking in the unit.
And the alleys on either right or left side are owned by other buildings?
They're shared areas, yeah.
For trash and other things,
Yeah.
yeah.
Those dumpsters, are the bank dumpsters.
Okay. Kind of like the one we did down the other end, if they're not cooking.
Yeah, it's similar. So I mean, for him to spend the
Somebody-
money for a site plan that's just gonna show you a building on a lot, doesn't make a lot of sense.
But we can still ask those questions, get comments from the town engineer. Any
Well, of course, yeah,
concerns.
Gail can, it will be a normal special permit, so she will circulate it to all the departments.
I guess, Mr. Chair, the only thing, Brian, and if this is a no cost thing, can you at least circulate the assessors?
Of course,
card?
Yeah.
'Cause that at least has the building on the lot.
of course. Yeah, we can take some photos around the building also, Mr. Tabell.
Even just the assessor's card would be fine with me.
Sure.
But photos would be appreciated too, just
Yeah.
as long as we're going through.
Yeah.
A few photos in that map, just simple so that we
But I
can
would agree,
visualize.
getting a surveyor in and all that wouldn't be necessary.
Agreed. Any other board member comment, question there? All right, so the motion would be to the waive site plan approval as part of this application when it does come before us.
I move that we waive site plan approval for 8 Albion Street as presented to us this evening.
Seconded.
Any discussion on the motion? All right, regular voting members, Chip,
Yes,
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes,
Tom,
Yes,
and I vote yes. All right, that's unanimous, Brian, so look forward to
Thank
hearing from you on this one.
Thank you. It takes care of other matters.
Right. So back to the top, I think all these matters are with you this evening, so do you have any preference on order or just start with the first continued and as
First
stated? Okay,
First continued would be great.
all right, so we'll start with the continued hearings on the agenda, starting with 23, 14, 15, 16, and 17 Kingman Block LLC at 369 to 371 Main Street.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me stop sharing the screen here. For the record, Attorney Brian McGrail representing Kingman Block LLC. We're still working on the easement issue. We're fine tuning that with Bill Renault. It's taking a little bit longer than we thought, but we're gonna get there. I talked to Bill again today. We really don't have a lot for you, but we did want to bring back Daniel Martinez, our architect, because from the last meeting, there were some changes that the board had requested. Lighting in the garage, et cetera. So Daniel has kind of a brief presentation on that, and I am working on O&M and conditions as the board requested, but they are not ready yet. So with that said, Daniel, can I hand it over to you?
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I'm Daniel from Calso Design. I'll be presenting to you the latest changes. Basically, the board commented last time, this is the design that we're presenting to 369 Main Street. And the board made three major remarks. They were to annotate that the existing vending window will be modified. with the future-
Daniel, this is Brian. We're not seeing the plan. We're seeing your download box with it.
Oh, great. Sorry about that.
We're seeing your Lenovo logo now. There you go. Yep.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
So again, good evening, everyone. This is 369 Main Street. You guys are already familiar with the design. So here's the main rendering. Some of the remarks that the board made was to indicate that the existing vending window located on Chestnut Street will be modified or removed with the future renovation of restaurant layout. Another quick change that we made was we indicated which brick color the board accepted. So that's the 313 ref flash wire cut. And the last comment that the board made from last time was that they wanted different lighting for the parking. So we provided a lighting that was more updated, and we mentioned that this will be with motion sensors. So it won't be up all night. Just for reference, here's the color that was chosen, option B. And everything is pretty much the same as last time. So again, the changes were very brief. Do you guys have any comments or additional comments?
We didn't want to take a lot of your time on this, but we did want to just, sometimes if you let too much time go by on these architectural updates, you forget what you have requested. So we just want to let you know we heard it and we've made those changes.
Brian, one question I have is on this piece in front of us right now. The brick, basically, the name has changed, but not the image.
Yes, we indicated it on here.
Yeah, so that's not the appearance of the brick, but is the right name.
I
Okay.
see. So, hold on. Go back to that, Daniel. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So there's a flash in that, and this is
Yeah.
much more, yellow or orange, should I say. So I'd like to make sure that in the record, basically, it's clear. Someone doesn't get confused, doesn't read the note, but looks at the image, say, oh, that's okay, great. That's not the way it should show.
Yeah. You can change that, right, Daniel?
That's not a problem, yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. That's how mistakes happen.
But it's right here. We got this other page, so, right?
Yeah, I'd still like to see it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay,
I mean,
Sounds
do
good.
you, on this page, board members, I mean, shouldn't we get rid of the option A? Why have that in there if it's not going to be picked?
Right. I left it in there by accident, but again,
Okay.
it can be removed
Okay.
and I can crop this so it just shows one.
and put that on that other page, and then this one can go away. Okay,
Sounds good.
that's fine. Thank you. So Brian, my pick list also had final engineering letter
Yeah, final engineering letter and TAC letter.
and TCA letter. So we still need
Correct.
those.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then draft conditions, O&M plan.
correct.
Okay. All right. So maybe we'll see where we are in 2 weeks on those.
Yeah, we'll see where we are. If I'm not, I'll continue it, but I don't think we'll have anything to present before we're ready to go with that stuff.
Okay.
Is the board pretty okay with the architecture at this point, Mr. Chair, that once Daniel makes those changes, I don't have to keep dragging him back?
Board members?
I'm fine with it.
Me too.
Yep, good.
Yeah, fine.
Thank you.
All right. So anything else, board members, in terms of the punch list, other than the 4 items I just read? We need final letters from TAC and engineering, and then O&M plan and draft conditions. Any other punch list items for them to prepare, or we'll see where we are when we get those things. Okay.
Well, let me note one other thing, as we were talking about the venting through the wall. So we got that here.
We can vent everything through the roof.
Okay.
The layouts would be pretty much stackable, so it shouldn't be an issue.
So we won't have any dryers or any kitchen exhaust coming out the side of the building.
No, we
Okay.
will not.
Dan, can you make a note on the plan, just a note on the plan of that?
Yes, I'll make a note. on
Because
the plan.
otherwise, again, when you go to, when we go to final building permit plans, you want to spec that, so there's no confusion.
I will annotate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, board members? All right. So continue for 2 weeks, Brian?
Yes, please. Oh, in the extension right now, Mr. Chair, is currently through June. Do you want to push that a little bit because you're going into June?
Yes.
Whatever you suggest.
Although we're at the end, isn't it till June 31st?
June 30th, but we're
So if we're doing O&M and whatnot next meeting,
You want to
which
leave?
is May.
Yeah,
Then we got 2 meetings in June. I mean, whatever you're comfortable with, Mr. Chair.
I mean, we could just go to the end of July. That gives us one more meeting should something be needed. That should really
Yeah.
cover us. That's
Yeah.
4 meetings potentially.
yeah, I like to extend. I just don't like that hanging over anybody's head. I always like to push it out, especially with the summer. So, want to just do till August 30th, Dave?
August, okay, I would suggested July, but if you want.
I mean, I know the board's gonna close it out as soon as they can. I very much trust the board that you wouldn't drag it out unnecessarily, so that way you just don't, and don't forget, you know, the extension also has to take in mind that the decision has to be done.
No, understood. It's not just a
So
meeting.
you're dealing with the
Yeah.
summer and vacation, so I would suggest to do August 30th,
Okay,
if it pleases the board. And
okay,
since all vacations in the summer, Gail's off sometimes, and it just takes that pressure off.
understood. All right. So motion to continue and then extend.
So I move that we continue this to our May 24th meeting. And that we allow the petitioner to extend the time to make a decision till August 30th.
Seconded.
Any discussion? All right, regular voting members, Chip,
Yes,
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes,
Tom,
Yes,
and I vote yes. All right, thanks for the updates tonight. We'll
Okay,
talk to in a
thank
couple
you very
weeks.
much.
Mhm.
Have a good night.
You too. Next continued hearing, 23-39, 40, 41, and 42, New Creek LLC at 10 Broadway.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Attorney Brian McGrail representing New Creek LLC at 10 Broadway. With me tonight is Ahmad Ali from Cube 3, our architect. Also, Brian O'Connor is here from Cube 3, who works with Ahmed. John Ogren is here from Hayes Engineering. And unfortunately, Donnie Lowe, who the board is very familiar with now, is not able to be here. Sadly, his mom passed away, so he's attending to his family during a difficult time, so he was not able to attend tonight. What we would like to do tonight is I want to kind of update you on the Conservation Commission. John Ogren has recommenced now that we kind of have our footprint of the building with the Concom, so he met at their last meeting with them. We still have work to do and information for them, but I think that it's fair to say that it's encouraging to them that we're getting rid of the impervious area that we're getting rid of in a benefit to the environment. Since the last meeting, we've also had additional working sessions with Jim McBain, fine tuning the architecture in more detail, especially as it relates to the side facing Crystal Lake that we want to present to you tonight. The board had also requested, us kind of provide a little bit more detail in a realistic scale for the pedestrian and outdoor experiences that we're presenting. If you might recall, we have a, real public area at the corner of North Ave and Broadway, kind of a plaza, which we're welcoming the public. And also we have a lot of outdoor amenity areas in the back of our building. And on the side of the building, we have that strip where we had the dog run, the cornhole, and the board kind of want to get an idea or a feel of that on how it is realistically on the ground. So hopefully we'll be able to give you an idea on that tonight. Finally, we want to present an idea on fencing to see if we're heading in the right direction on that. Because it was suggested that we're going to have fencing around the perimeter of our entire lot, that the board really didn't want like a stockade type thing that would be like a fort. We wanted more of a fence that would provide some privacy, but at the same time, kind of blend in and not take over the whole site or the whole area. So with that said, if I may, Mr. Chair, I'm going to hand it over to the folks at Cube 3. They have a PowerPoint presentation, and we will send you a copy of this right after the meeting.
Great.
And
Thanks, Brian. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Brian O'Connor from Cube 3. Are you guys able to see my screen?
We're seeing a
Yes.
meeting agenda screen. Yes.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you. So I think we've been before you a number of times. So this is really an update meeting. So I won't spend a lot of time bringing bringing up old business, but just to refresh everyone with where we're at, we're looking at the property outlined in the dotted red here, with frontage on North and Broadway and a significant amount of visibility from Main Street. We've been working with the board and Mr. McBain in particular on trying to really nail down both views from Crystal Lake, that edge, as well as all of the main streets. And so what we're going to do tonight is share some updates. Again, reminder of the property. This is the existing site. We're really looking on the bottom left from North Street, looking along the edge, and then from Broadway along the top of the page, fairly straightforward. This is a view looking south along Main Street. The board should be familiar with this. We've been working quite hard on updates to the base of the building all the way around and the focal areas that Mr. McGrail mentioned at the beginning. But broadly speaking, I think the massing and the scale of this building is fairly well settled in the last round of several meetings with the board. This is looking northbound again along Main Street, and the building appears sort of behind the car lot on the left-hand side. This is the massing that we've sort of landed on, and you can see the building is really very carefully broken down into a number of different segments with fenestration, variation, and changes, a lot of terracing and setbacks to the building along the Main Street edge here, as well as on the backside. This is the view that I think everybody sort of agreed on last time, looking from Broadway. Main entry to the building is in the middle. Again, this is the last round of renderings, and we're going to share with you updates mostly to the Crystal Lake side and the base of the building all the way around. Just to remind everyone, this is the North Ave view. Again, existing view has the parking lot along this edge, and this is the sort of front public edge to the building, with the main entry to the right, the drop off, and then this public park area we talked about a little bit in the front. So the one thing we've been working on quite a bit here, and again with Mr. McBain, is looking at the Crystal Lake view. This was the original massing for the building along that edge, and what we did is that's been revised to be shorter. As you can see here, this was the last iteration. And then again, from there, we've worked quite hard to create both more breakdown in the building and in the massing and in the articulation and fenestration, as well as starting to look very carefully at how this building hits the ground all the way around the edges, and in particular where there are public spaces. So I'll bounce back and forth just for a moment between these two so that the board can see all the changes. It really is mostly about the way the colors and the materials are articulated, as well as the base of the building all the way around. And so what we're going to do now is zoom in a little bit further on this Crystal Lake edge, which you can see here. In particular, we have sort of this green public space at the inside corner and a park area to the back, which you'll hear about a little more in a moment. And one of the things that we wanted to do is talk in a little more detail about what's actually happening along this edge. This is sort of an internal residential plaza on the Crystal Lake side. It's about 18 feet wide. I think it's 15. Ahmed, jump in here if I have my dimensions wrong. And what we wanted to do is really create this sense of pedestrian scale by not only varying the colors and the materials, but also the textures and what that experience will feel like. So we wanted to share with you sort of what our thoughts are along the base of the building on this edge. And so we're looking at, from a material standpoint, everywhere you see this darker gray, it's kind of a gray masonry material, and there's a quick image of that on the left. Areas of the parking garage, instead of just sort of screening this with solid wall, we wanted to really bring some life in here. So we're proposing a mesh screening solution that'll support the ability for green screen to grow. And so we anticipate this to be a living, breathing sort of organic edge to the building that exists along the Crystal Lake side here and at the end of the building. And then we're breaking that up a little bit with a series of vertical panels here, and then a more solid section in some areas. So what we're trying to do is really create a variety of interest in the materials at the base and a pedestrian experience that doesn't feel monotonous as you kind of walk along the edge of the building. And, you know, we have a tremendous amount of detail here we're happy to share. I won't get into, too much of this, but the brick itself is sort of this darker gray masonry. We will be detailing it with corbelling, as you can see in this image, and then really thinking about how that works. These are a few images of what that mesh screen actually looks like. And then there's obviously a tremendous amount of product detail on that. As far as the sort of vertical wood panels, we're proposing a material called Fundermax here. This is a material that is traditionally used as building siding. We've used it on a number of projects. It's a very high quality building material. And in fact, it's gotten substantially expensive, but we think it's the right look and feel for this building. And so we're using it in selected areas to really bring a very warm and engaging texture to the building. As you can see here, looking at the north elevation, so in the lower left-hand corner, this is the image I shared with you at the beginning. And this is really what we're proposing to do here. So the back edge of this public plaza is no longer just a blank wall with the sort of gray masonry that we had before. What we're bringing is that green screen and that organic edge right up to the front to sort of create a vertical wall to that pedestrian plaza, which kind of runs along this edge behind the columns, down the back here, and then over to the main entry. And then we are picking up the gray masonry on the right-hand side in a little bit more of a solid way towards the back of the building on the far right. We're really trying to connect the building to the ground where it makes sense and let it connect to the landscape where it makes sense. And we're trying to vary that as much as we can. Here you can see an image along the edge of the building. This is again the Crystal Lake facade. So you can see the projecting balconies, the sort of gray masonry that wraps around the top, and then the infill of the green screen connecting to the landscape and the sidewalks down below. And again, the vertical panel over on the right-hand side, and then the more solid fiber cement panel in some areas where we really want to have selected opportunities to ground the building in a more significant way. This is looking along the east elevation. Again, there's a strong tree buffer to the foreground, and then we're proposing sort of garage screening all along this edge. This is behind the car lot. And as you can see in the Main Street elevations, it really is fairly invisible. But at the same time, I think we really want a vegetated buffer to the base of this building wherever we can. And so we're looking at that all along this entire edge to the building on the east side. Another shot here of the public plaza. Again, there's a key plan in the lower left. And we'll hit on this just a little bit more in the landscape section. But I think the idea here is to really create an experience for pedestrians. We want this to feel like a public place. We want the sidewalks to kind of move in there. We want there to be seat walls that could be accessed from the inside of the circle, from the outside of the circle. People can sit and just take a moment and sort of enjoy the landscape and enjoy the edge. And I think this is where that sort of vegetated wall becomes really important. And you can sort of see how that sidewalk wraps around down the east elevation on the left-hand side. And you can get a sense of how this really works in this area. The other thing we looked at in a little more detail is what the main entry feels like. And so instead of, again, just having sort of too much of this darker gray brick, we've brought a very warm, substantial wood canopy into the mix to really highlight the front entry here and create a little bit of a focal point. Down low, again, we're bringing that warmth, we're bringing that pedestrian scale down and framing this entry with a bit more of a solid treatment with the gray brick, the gray masonry kind of on either side. And then as Mr. McGrail had mentioned, this is the east side, this sort of this edge that we wanted to illustrate in terms of width and depth and scale. And so you can see there's a little bit of a building overhang there, as well as a fairly wide corridor of green space along the edge for dog walk. This is about 15 feet in width with a tree buffer on the right-hand side, creating a little bit of space between the open lawn area and the trail, the rail trail on the right. This is a view from the back of the building. So we're closest to Crystal Lake here. And this really focuses on this park area. There was sort of a little bit of a question about how big this was, what would it feel like, what were we trying to do here? And I think the idea here is to really create a pedestrian walking experience along the edge of the building on the Crystal Lake side where you had seen that sort of treatment we were proposing. You can see the sidewalk coming off the left-hand side of the building and sort of coming down across the parking lot and sort of terminating in this park area. We envision sort of it's not a gigantic area, but we want it to be fairly robust in terms of, potential seating areas, a walking path where you could kind of come down, loop around and head back. And, I think we want to keep this fairly clean and fairly crisp, but it is a large enough area that we think could really be a nice addition to the project. I'm going to let James, if he's on the call, just speak for a moment about any of the other landscaping issues we may have missed, as well as the fencing.
Hello, good evening, James Manuel here, landscape architect. I think that you've covered most of what we had talked about with the landscape, public space, courtyards and so forth. We have updated the fence detail, and I believe that the last version of this that we had talked about had more of an opaque composite fence, and now we're proposing an open picket fence that has a degree of transparency to it, as you can see in the sample photograph in the corner there. This would be a composite material as well, but it's something that I think will allow a little bit more air circulation, a little bit more visual transparency, but still give a sense of the enclosure to the property as well too. So that's really the main update on this that we've done from the landscape perspective. With the green walls and so forth, those are going to integrate into shrub plantings that we have proposed along the perimeter of the public spaces that we've created. Don't have specific vines on the plant list yet, but there are vines that would work with this kind of green screen, trellising, twining type vines that would complement the shrubs that we have on the borders. Give a feeling of even more kind of garden type setting at the pedestrian level in that scale. Other than that, we have not adjusted the front plaza space. From the previous plan, we still have programmatically the same spaces in the L area where the building is, and outside of the fence adjustments, we still are proposing the dog run and some seating areas and pathways along the narrow side of the building as well too, but it's going to be a much more diverse experience given the materials along the building facade, which was discussed at our last meeting at the lower level. So I hope that answers those questions that we had on the previous meeting.
Yeah, and I think I'll turn it back over to Mr. McGrail for any sort of closing comments.
Yeah, well, I think you guys covered it well. I think, we've worked hard, and the fence is an idea. I think, Mr. Tabell, we were trying to hit on what you had said on that. You didn't want, just a stockade running all the way around to kind of create something that would be interesting and provide screening, but also not provide the feeling of like a fort that we were trying to create. And I'm sure, Mr. Chair, the board will probably want to hear from Board Member McBain, who's worked with our architect to this point, because I'm sure Jim has some thoughts.
I see several hands up. I didn't see what order they went up, but Jim, do you want anything first before we go around the table? Jim, you're on mute.
All right, back.
Yeah.
So they came to this last meeting with the concept of this trellis sort of system along the garage, which I thought was a good green substitute, but an open substitute. At the same time, you still can see through it. But at the same time, you're not having to look at the headlights of all the cars that are in there. So I thought it was an elegant solution. So I hadn't pushed in any particular direction on this because I thought it was a good direction. My concentration has really been on the backside to get more relevance to the rest of the building, because that lakeside was really very flat in my mind. It didn't carry the characteristic that the rest of the building did on the other sides. And so in there changing the architecture and the materials, basically, I think it's worked out very, very well to relate to the rest of the building. So I'm happy with that as part of the decision. So I would like to hear back from the rest of the board members at this point.
Okay, thanks, Jim. So Chip?
Yeah,
Start us.
I guess I have a couple questions, and James, I know you said you hadn't picked the vine yet, but although these renderings look great, do you think these renderings are 5 years down the road, 7 years down the road, 1 year down the road? I know vines grow quickly, but you know, we're still gonna see headlights for at least a couple years. What do you think the timetable is to get it to look like the rendering shows?
I think we could look at 3 years for that. You know, the vines that we would be proposing.
I mean, you're thinking a euonymus, what are you
Well,
thinking?
with green screen plants, with green screen, there's actually a list of kind of recommended vines, and we would probably go with a twining vine.
Okay,
Some of them are the native honeysuckles. I have the list in front of me on the other screen here. There's some clematis, which grows fairly quickly.
and they're evergreen,
They're not evergreen, but they're fairly dense.
so that's a problem, right? Because that
So-
means they're just gonna be sticks and metal screening throughout 6
Yeah,
months of the year and green through the other 6 months.
that's about right. I mean, they do hold on to their sort of spent leaves, and sometimes they have other characteristics that will carry them, you know, for more like 8 months or so. But most of the plants that will, you know, be quickly growing on these vines are going to be deciduous, and the evergreen ones, they're really not designed entirely for evergreens. Evergreens, if we were to select some of those, would be slower growing. So that would be more like a 5 year plan on some of those.
I guess my concern is to, you know, it looks, I love the idea of the green wall. We're in New England. It's only gonna be a green wall 1/2 to 2/3, maybe if you're lucky. Unless we do an ivy or something like that. So I would just want to think about that. And although I see the design of the fencing, I guess if you could go back to your site plan, I don't understand where it's being used, like on the, let's call it on the Main Street side or the rail to trail side. That rail to trail is not built yet, right?
That's not, as far as I can tell, that's not, as my understanding is that's not built.
Right, so is the
Chip,
idea,
that's not, I don't think that's proposed to be rail to trail.
Yeah,
right?
I thought it was gonna- I
That
thought it
was
was gonna
my
start at Bennett.
surprise when it was mentioned. Rail to trail's on the other side, isn't it?
That's right. That's on the other side of Main Street.
So what, this is just a property line.
Correct.
That's right. In the property line abuts the MBTA property.
On the Main Street side?
Yes.
So what's the so it's just gonna be,
Can you go to the pictures, Brian, at the beginning that will help kind of orient the photos? Keep going. Yeah, there you go.
I don't,
So, let's see.
so there is a space down, I guess.
Yeah, pull that up, Brian. Can you pull that up?
The MBTA line is
Nope.
still active along Crystal.
No, well, there's two sides, Chip. There's the when I say the MBT, so right,
Sorry,
at
I'm
the
trying to
bottom of the
hold it.
screen, our property line on the bottom of the screen, it abuts the abandoned MBTA line, the abandoned train line, if you will. But it's
And-
owned by,
Do we
and-
think that's going to become something?
we don't know, but as far as I know, and I'm pretty positive about this, is not part of the rail to trail. The
Yeah,
rail to-
I misspoke on that. I apologize.
Well, I was hoping it was.
No,
Because that would have been new information, and then the question is, do you need a fence there, or does your property just kind of open out onto it? So my question then becomes, you know, do you put a fence up there? Or do you just leave it tree lined? So that it feels like your property has more space? I don't know the answer to that.
well, I mean, the condition of that property, the way it's kept is not, it's not aesthetically pleasing.
So I guess one of the questions, Brian, I would have is the abandoned MBTA. However, maybe could we understand if it could be not given or leased but could it be treated differently and give your property some more room? And even grassed or maintained or something by your owners? Just a thought.
Yeah, well, my experience dealing with the MBTA, and I have a lot, is that they will not give you permission to walk on their property.
Because of liability.
Just they're extremely protective. I mean, I've had clients that have tried to negotiate deals with them. They send you a license agreement, not a lease, and it has every indemnification you can possibly have for them on if there happens to be hazardous waste on the property, you're responsible for it, even though they
Yeah,
ran trains
okay.
there for 100 years.
So I guess then that does become a tree fenced spot, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
So you're talking about this fence, obviously it doesn't run along Broadway. So where does the fence start?
It really runs, around three sides of the property, and the frontage would not have a fence.
But does it start at the building edge on the corner of Broadway and Main or?
Yeah, about at the building edge of the corner there, it would go back around the perimeter, around the back parking lot. Then between the property to the side, the westerly side there. And then continue, and then come, not so much as to block sightlines, but come pretty close to the end, because we've got parking lots and other kind of utility type areas that are not things that we really just want to connect openly to. So
What height is this fence?
well, we had started at 6 feet was originally what we were looking at. We could go 5 feet, 6 feet. I think with the transparency factor, a 5-foot fence might be okay to do that because it's semi-transparent, but we don't want anything, that's too short, but we didn't want the fortress kind of feel that we were talking about before either.
No, I like the thought of it, and I think it does serve the purpose and doesn't feel like a enclosed space.
Right.
So
it
plan-
will.
I
It
just
will go
wonder if
around.
you vary the heights depending on what you're trying to block. If you maybe vary the height a little bit, what can you, there's a lot of it, right?
Yeah, I
on
think
this
what I
property.
was thinking, Chip, was that we would really look at the plantings in front of it, and some areas would have more dense evergreen type plantings, and others might have deciduous and lower type plantings. Some areas to
Okay.
create that variety. that you're
Yep.
talking about.
All right. No, I think it's a creative alternative. I like the green wall idea. I just want to make sure that it actually can work in New England and be a green wall, not a green/brown wall.
Yeah, I think we can have a great degree of success with that. The green screen material itself is, in of itself is kind of an attractive metal material. So even though the plants, will be deciduous in some degree, if we don't have all evergreen vines, I think there's some textural quality to that as well too.
Yeah, maybe you want to do different vines on different areas.
Exactly. That's pretty standard. I think we would plan on doing that.
Okay. I just haven't, have you ever done one, James, before?
Yeah, I've done a couple of them. And
Do you have any pictures of what they look like 3 years down the road to share?
if I can find some, I'll be happy to share them next time.
Okay, great. Or tell us where you did them and I'll drive by.
Yeah. I think there's
Because I
one.
haven't seen, I think it's a great idea. I just haven't seen it up in this area. I've seen it a lot in southern states.
Right. Okay.
That's all I got.
Thanks, Chip. Joe?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. So back to that green wall. So where there's no screening, is it like glass panels or is it just open?
It's just open.
Okay, yeah, it just looked like there was like panels there or something. I was just worried about them getting dirty from the exhaust, so.
Yeah.
And then one other thought, I don't know if you thought about this, just my opinion. Did you think about a fountain in the front, or is that something discussed at all, or?
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in. So Joe, this is Brian. That was my idea. And when we were working with Jim, and everyone's smiling because Jim included, I got slammed on that because for the same reason that, in the wintertime, it looks terrible, that it's just,
Right,
and-
you would just shut it off.
yeah, but it becomes an attractive nuisance with kids in the
Yeah.
middle school, and it's just, in the maintenance of it,
Yeah.
You decorate it, Brian, you put greens in it, it could be really fun.
Or soap.
I don't know, just a thought. I mean, they have a fountain up on Main Street further down, right? In the center.
yeah, the Rockery.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know, just a thought, but that was it. That's all.
I had the
That's what
same thought, so.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks, Joe.
Yep.
Tom?
I wasn't at the last meeting, so I apologize for that, but I gotta say, I'm still not on board with this density. I think this site has a lot of constraints. I think the shoehorning way too many units, way too dense of a building in here. I appreciate Jim's efforts to try to soften that, and some of the details that went over tonight about adding green and stuff, but this location, this site, I am not on board. This is just too much. I think there should be a lot more green here. I know there's a lot of asphalt there now, and it's a site that needs to be transformed. But you're basically replacing asphalt with building mass. So I don't see it as a huge win. I don't want to belabor it if I'm all alone. That's just where I am. I can't support this.
All right, thanks, Tom. Greg?
Yeah, mine was on the green screen also. I just wanted to sort of understand more what it actually looked like. There was, on the rendering, it looked like there was, I don't know, upper and lower panels alternating, if that makes sense. Is that what it really is going to look like, or does it look more like the pictures of the screening that was shown and the actual pictures in the cut sheets?
Right, so sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that was it.
So there are a lot of different ways to do this. I think one of the things that we were hoping for, this when you just run the panels vertically like this and it's all stacked, it kind of feels a little bit less textural and a little bit less interesting with the openings between it. And so one of the things I think we were really trying to do is create some visual interest. So instead of just having vertical stacks of green, these vines kind of start growing horizontally and vertically, and we get much more sort of interesting shapes and interesting opportunities in the green screen. So I think you're right. We were sort of proposing sections of this as we go, rather than sort of a monolithic application. And I think at the end of the day, you can apply this screening in a number of different ways. This was sort of one that we thought would be the most interesting to be around. So I don't know.
And I'm okay either way. I just didn't quite understand with the two different pictures what you were going for.
Yeah, no, I apologize. I should have explained that better.
But if you do it this way, and I mean, again, either way, it's more on how we, look at the O&M. Does it introduce a lot more labor in trying to keep them, instead of just, the higher ones will just grow down and hang off? But we don't want that. How do we make sure that it ends up the way we want it? Is that a lot more labor, or is that they only grow on the green screen type of thing?
We would select twining vines. So twining vines are types that will wrap around a material rather than kind of cling to a material. And a lot of these vines, and the vines that are generally specified in the product sheets, are plants that will have a length of 20-25 feet maybe. So there's certainly some pruning that will need to take place, but it's not like they're going to jump across the entirety of an open panel. So you're going to get kind of like the picture that you see in front of us right now. I think that's definitely achievable with some 25-foot pines at maturity. And the voids will be created, and they're not going to be maybe perfect squares or rectangles. They could be maintained with intensive maintenance to be kind of like that, but the openings and the massings and the voids will be apparent because of the characteristics of the way the plant grows along those panels.
Thank you.
Thanks, Craig. Kasumi?
My comments also on the green screen. Is that you just said the green screen part will be open, but is the actual mesh part close off from the ground to the certain height? Like, I'm just wondering if there'll be any like raccoon issues or like bunny issues or anything like that at nighttime, like they can go into the parking area. And I'm not sure where your trash rooms are like located.
So, okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I have a couple. And then the other thing I was wondering, maybe the mesh itself can have like some kind of like greenish tint. Like, so in the wintertime, it looks a little bit nicer, like just not the twines. So that was I thought maybe that can be nicer looking if it has a little bit of color to the mesh itself. And my another question is, are you going to be introducing some kind of vegetations in on the setbacks on the top floor or like above the main entry area on the roof area, like small trees?
So I'm gonna, can you guys hear me? Sorry.
Yeah, we can. But there's some feedback, it looks like.
Yeah. Strange feedback. Sorry, I'm gonna try to just talk through it and hopefully it goes away. So I'll go in reverse order, hopefully. As far as the balconies go, I think we're definitely open to bringing some green up there. I think at the end of the day, that would be planter-based greens. We would certainly not be really proposing to plant trees or anything up there. So they would be, plants or other greenery that lives in planters to sort of support those public spaces. As far as the green screen itself, and James may be able to answer this better than I can, but I think all of the trash rooms and all of the services in the building at the lower level are enclosed anyway. They don't rely on the green screens for enclosure. So we're certainly not going to have trash rooms that are only screened by the green screen. As far as the rabbits or the bunnies go, in terms of whether they could come in and out of the garage, I'm not sure we have a bunny plan in place right now. And I think you're right, where we have this sort of up and down. I think theoretically they could. So that may be something that we should look at a little bit more.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate the comments. Thank you.
And didn't you say that, or maybe James said that the screens themselves may be a color? I think that was our other comment.
Oh, sorry, I did miss that. We've seen them in a number of different colors. I don't know if the particular version that we were looking at has a green. I think most of the time we end up going, so you can see there's different colors down here in that image in the lower left. If you wanted something, that's a little more green, you could go with a darker tone. I think which you could see on this image, excuse me, over here, I believe. Or you could go with a lighter tone, so it would look a little bit more metallic and a little bit slicker, but you could certainly go in either direction.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments?
I got a question. When we're talking about planting up on the upper level, is when you're saying there might be some planting or something done, you're talking about the far end of the building towards the lake, aren't you? On the deck.
Yeah, I think they would just be planters, not like, we're not talking about planting in like any kind of deeper soil or actual green areas. If there are public spaces, you know, up there, which there are, we may do planters which could have green in them and vegetative material.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Dave, I think one of the requests I've got, which normally come about now, is that I'm going to be looking for sectional elements, concept elements, basically, from top to bottom, from the parapet all the way down to the ground. So we know the dimensions of some of this and the detailing of some of this. And Brian can sort of highlight that to his client, or I can take what I've done before and put an elevation together and then put some sectional marks as to where I'd like to see the design concept and how it comes together vertically.
Okay. Brian, do you want Jim to send examples or?
Yeah, that'd be good, just so there's no miscommunication.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? I don't think we received any other correspondence tonight, just the updated plan. I did note the hard copy received did not have that last view from that park area in the back of the property.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
gonna send you this,
I'm certainly happy to provide.
Yeah.
we're
the
gonna
one-
send this updated, Pete, we're gonna send this PowerPoint presentation to you.
Okay, yeah, I
Yeah.
know you said that. I just noted that it was not, that last page was not in the package, but we'll get it in PDF form as well. But other than that, nothing else from me. I think others sort of covered the basis.
Yeah, and I just want to, and the other part too is, you still have outstanding, and I think at the last meeting, we talked a little bit about it, but I think you're going to get a pretty positive review on this project from Traffic Advisory and DPW, considering the traffic reduction that it's going to provide, and also the opportunity that's going to provide to have a left-hand turn lane going towards the middle school, coming over the railroad tracks now, that is not there now, that has been an Achilles heel for this town for years. And, we've talked about that at prior meetings, that right now you have bottlenecks at Chestnut Street and Prospect Street because everything gets funneled. In this project, in my discussions with Bill Renault, is going to provide the opportunity to provide for a left-hand turn. So there's going to be some huge possibilities of improvements that this project will present as time goes on with the town that aren't there now and wouldn't be without it.
Brian, there's one other topic that we started to discuss in our meeting, our last meeting, which had to do with the entry, the canopy, and sort of, it's in a way, it's sort of the last element within the perimeter of the building, and it was that particular element, and the guys were going to look at that. So just to keep it on the list.
The canopy, Jim?
Yeah, the canopy, the texture of the canopy, how it what is it flanked by? If it's flanked.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, okay. I know.
We
what
were
you're
trying
talking
to
about.
get more definition to the entry than just this black thing, which actually shows up on what you got right now up on the screen.
Yep.
So I think you ought to maybe zoom in and show everybody basically that idea, because I think everybody's seen just this black canopy.
Yep.
And it might be good for the board to basically comment on what they'd like to see.
You mean where the 10 Broadway is?
Yep.
Yes.
You're talking about flanking on both sides, Jim, those walls.
Well, I made a bunch of comments, basically. I left it to you guys, basically, to come up with, concepts. And just for the moment, I'd like to hear from the board as to what they think that is. So if we can zoom in that picture, basically right to that front, and let them sort of comment that as well, material wise, or how to accent that area or anything.
I'd just like to see a lot less building around the canopy, Jimmy.
Okay.
That Main
Well, Jim-
Street facade, I know you're on the canopy, but that Main Street facade, I'm telling you guys, it's too long. Too much building.
Can you show it again, please? Yeah, that.
Excuse me, that and the other view further down. Too much.
And how
Again,
tall is this? How tall is this proposed building? What's that height? 4 stories, so what, 50 feet or something, or 45
It's 5-story building. 50.
stories, right?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I cut you off, 50 something?
Yes, it's 56, I believe.
Okay.
And what's the stretch? What's the length there?
I can double check, but it's about 300 feet.
Thank you.
It's 60 feet is allowed in the industrial district.
I get your point, but I don't know, I feel like, because it doesn't follow Main Street, it kind of veers off into the back, so to me, I don't know, I feel like it disappears at one point. But I hear what you're saying, but I don't know, I feel like it just, like this view, it kind of, you don't really, you can see half the building, and then the other view, you see more of it, but I feel like it veers off into the train tracks, to the sunset, I don't know.
I hear you, Joe, but I get what the architect's doing here, and he's trying to frame it in the best way possible.
Yeah,
So
no,
he shows this particular perspective, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you know, you're always trying to put your best foot forward when you're putting your project out there, right? But, you know, so.
Hi, Tom, Mickey Feely. What you're saying is, well, just go back earlier, you thought there should be more green space. How do you get more green space? You get rid of some of the parking. How do you get rid of some of the parking? Get rid of some of the units.
Yep.
I tend to agree with you there. If nothing else, it blocks the view of Harvard Mill.
I like that project though. Cube 3 did that one too, didn't they?
Yeah, well, yeah. I like the idea of giving as much density to downtown as possible. But I like your idea of more green space too.
Well, you know, it's a catch-22. I mean, you know, I respect all board members' opinions, you know, but it becomes, and I know you hear this on every project, you know, we've lost, you know, the financial feasibility of these projects. And, you know, that's a hard thing to, I guess, understand or sympathize with. I get that. I understand it, but, you know, we're at that with this project. We just don't have a lot, anything to give. We meet the parking requirements. And, you know, and that's usually what you strive for. I always respect your, you know, I don't have a response to your comments, Tom, because your comments and thoughts are yours and I respect them. So I wouldn't try to argue against them. I can just tell you where we are. So, you know, a decision has to be made, you know, otherwise it just won't go forward.
Yep.
So.
I just can't support that. That's all.
And I respect that.
Brian, you said, I think you said quickly earlier too, this meets the height requirements and won't be, you're not looking for any relief on the height requirement for the industrial district, for the.
In the,
not
in that
necessar-
district, Greg.
Yeah,
Yes,
not
yeah,
necessarily
yeah.
for, yeah, I mean, I guess the way. I
But
was
not the
thinking-
not the multifamily,
Yes.
Greg. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. But you know what, and I don't, you know, the way with what's going on in the world today, I don't think you can end up with a 60-foot industrial building built there.
Well, in
you know,
all
this
honesty,
is-
I think we'd rather this than an industrial building anyways.
Yeah, but I don't think you
Unless-
can, I mean, so I don't want to pretend like, oh, you're gonna end up with a 60-foot, I don't think you are. Who's gonna build a 60-foot industrial building there? What do you know, that's not gonna happen, but at least with what's going on in the world today, because, you know, that industrial district was probably put in back when the train was there, right? You know, and it just all worked. It's really an interesting place for an industrial district to to be. You know, usually in these areas in your downtown, you have an industrial district, you would normally desire for them, you know, don't forget, our housing production plan calls for this site to be developed in this way.
Yep.
It says this is a place to put this, because what happens with these industrial places, if they're not developed, as I said at the beginning, when you have a company like Kimco, which I said at the beginning of the hearings, when you have a company like Kimco, major real estate owner and investor, when they're at your table, you want to, it's good to work with them, because if all of a sudden they determine, hey, this site just doesn't work for us anymore, then they sell it and it becomes, you don't know what it's going to become. It can become a contractor's yard by right. But whoever buys it, someone will buy it to park trucks there because they can do it. So this to me is, I just think, a great opportunity to rehabilitate a blighted paved lot. And, maybe, hey, from the perspective of size or density, it might not be perfect, but it's up to you guys to look at the total picture. And that's what we're bringing to you. But I think you've got a first-rated company that wants to keep this property, wants to do business in Wakefield. It's an opportunity.
Brian, is this that whole area down there, I think, has some environmental challenges? Is there remediation that has to happen, that's a cost?
I don't know. I don't know about that. That's something, Donnie
I
can-
don't want to raise that flag, but obviously
Yeah.
that whole area down there is full of it.
That's been a big issue on Boundary Street, Michael. And, I don't know if that's the case on this lot.
This lot, and where the railroad track goes through was a railroad yard where they shuttled both trains basically going out towards Linfield and Lynn. And at the same time, they had box cars and stuff like that. And where the Jiffy Lube is today was a big coal tower there, basically, where they filled the trucks and got the coal off the trains at the same time. So this is a real heavy industrial area with that activity. And let me note that what may happen with time, or will happen with time, is Main Street on that side will change as far as height and light. And because you've got a population there, those people are going to go to Dunkin' Donut. And if, other people show up, other businesses along, they're going to find that they're going to basically drive some economic viability in that area for people to go there. Even the plaza across the way from them, they're going to basically benefit from a population there, quite frankly.
I like
So
that.
It's more of a spin-off basically from what happens here. And putting more people in a spot, you may not like it, but it also helps the town survive.
May I suggest, like I can see the section, the white section and the wood section of the building seems a little bit like a boxy. Maybe you can suggest like a recessed balcony in some of the units. So you're gonna break up the rhythms of the facade a little bit, but without losing the number of the unit itself in the whole building.
Brian, can you touch on that?
Yeah, I mean, we try to stay away from doing recessed balconies in wood frame as much as we can. The waterproofing can be challenging. I think we were, I understand what you're saying. I think we were trying to really get as much rhythm, texture, height, and setback as we could without sort of interrupting the ability to really kind of build this in a way that would make sense. I think inset balconies are a nice thought, and on concrete and steel buildings, we do them all the time. I think they're a bit challenging on wood frame buildings because you're basically, you have the envelope of the building and then you're welcoming water and snow into what effectively becomes a roof condition over a unit below at some point. So we tend to try to stay away from those as much as possible, but I understand the suggestion. Certainly happy to talk about it with the team.
Well, can you show that other picture again, just So where are their balconies? You saw them on the other part of the building, but are there any on this side? Yeah, they're
We
there.
we had a
No,
conversation with the
that right there,
with the
along this
fire
whole
department.
facade. Are there balconies? Yeah,
Go ahead, Ahmed.
So on this side, we don't have balconies. Part of the conversations we had earlier with the fire department, they strictly told us not to have any balconies here since we don't have a fire lane around that side of the building, and maintain only balconies on the other three sides.
interesting. What's the fire concern?
The
People,
So they don't have a fire lane around the building. What we proposed earlier at some point was like a 360 fire lane around the whole building, but that's not the case anymore. And they had some concern about like having balconies on that side that is not served by a fire lane.
If there was an incident on the balcony, Dave, that they had, someone was, on a balcony, that they wouldn't be able to get a ladder truck around it to help them.
huh, okay. All right, well, again, previous comment was speaking to, recessed balconies, but I just noted that there weren't any at all. So even if we could do it, that's why I asked. It would,
Great.
again,
great
just
question.
create more texture, some more,
Yep. Yeah.
visual breakup of that with those, but okay, didn't,
Yeah,
I don't-
and I don't know how much of a hard line that was with the fire department, I mean,
Yeah, like I said, we're happy to kind of
Yeah.
reinvestigate that stuff.
I mean, that was
Okay.
really early on. We can
Yeah.
talk to the chief again on that.
There appears
Okay.
to be French balconies on that side, though.
There are, so there are a series, there's a stack here and here. And then I think there are two other stacks here where we're going to have like railings and deeper glass areas there so that people can open the French balconies and get a breeze. So there is some texture along that edge, but we're certainly happy to kind of take another look there if we can.
Okay. So Brian, just to, again, some of the comments you're hearing in the previous, response, maybe we look at it again next week. There were 4 applications here. One was just the special permit site plan review for the redevelopment, but there are some dimensional aspects of this that you also applied to. So maybe we can go through those without getting into it tonight, but maybe you can prep something and just go take the board through, given where we are. What, based on it taking shape, what it's looking like now, what are the things, what is the relief? If not the parking count, but there are other aspects that are being proposed here. So maybe we go through that and just make sure everyone's on the same page. And if again, the board would really like to see things head in a different direction or some adjustments, we can get that taken care of before we get too far, Does that sound okay?
That's fine.
Okay. And board members, just think about it again, like any of these, it's a special permit. It has to meet certain criteria. And if anyone besides Tom is uncomfortable with where it's headed, or it feels it doesn't meet some of the aspects of that special permit, then let's bring it out and discuss it, before we get to the end of this, and then, have to potentially take a vote and it doesn't turn out the way, the applicant certainly wants it. Better that they find out it sooner rather than later if things need to change, or it may not be headed where they want it to be. So, all right. Anything else, board members, at this time? Brian, anything else? That was it for the presentation, right?
Correct.
All right. All right, we'll open up the public testimony. If anyone in the public has a comment or question about the information being discussed tonight, please raise your hand in the Zoom meeting. Seeing no hands being raised, I'll close out the public testimony for the evening. So 2 weeks, Brian?
Correct.
Okay.
Mr.
think you're
Chair, real quick, Brian, you didn't get samples together, right? It's still too soon for that, or sample materials?
It's up to you, whatever the board's pleasure is on that.
Yeah, whenever you want to drop them off, if
So, Brian and Ahmed, the board will often want some sample materials, like, you talked about that, like maybe samples of the wire mesh, the black brick.
Yeah, we're happy to pull that together. No
the
problem.
fencing too, I don't know if people want to see that. I
No
don't know
problem.
if you,
Yeah, that might be a little bit difficult at this point.
I mean, like, yeah, I don't know if you need the whole piece, just a section of it, whatever. But cut off.
Okay, so you'll gather those and let us know.
We will.
Okay, sounds good. Anything else? All right. We'll entertain a motion to continue for till 5:24.
I move we continue to 5:24.
Second,
Thank you. Any discussion? I have regular voting members. Tom,
Yes.
Joe,
yes.
Jim,
Yes,
Chip.
Oh.
Chip, did we lose Chip? Hello, Chip.
Yes.
Oh, there you are. And I vote yes. Thank you. All right, well, thanks for the updates tonight. And we'll
Appreciate
see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And our final continued hearing for the evening, case 23-73 and 74, 335 Washington Street LLC at 610 to 614 North Avenue.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Attorney Brian McGill representing the applicant on this Washington Street LLC. This is the all brick GMC Buick dealership at 610, 614 North Ave. We presented in detail the site plan and the architectural plan on the kind of revitalization of this building, which was kind of enclosing a small outdoor area on both ends of the front, which I think the board, it's a finding that's being required. The board didn't have an issue with that. And there's also signage that goes with that, that it seemed that the board was okay with what was being proposed with the signage, but it was somewhat confusing, as Mr. McBain had raised, on what relief was needed for the signage and how it would be defined. So the board assigned Jim to work with me to come up with how that signage should be accounted for under our sign bylaw. This is not in the sign overlay district. So I'm going to share my screen and kind of show you how that played out. So basically, this is the dealership facing 128, and what they're proposing here, they have an all brick sign, they have the combined Buick GMC, and then they have certified service. You can see that here. And the way Jim analyzed this, and I agree with him, so this kind of shows that side of the building, certified service, and then the Buick GMC, all within the black, and then the all brick, which is also here. And so the way Jim classified this is this entire block where all brick is going to be is calculated as an accessory sign in this entire block, because it has the background of the GMC Buick is classified as a sign. And then the certified service is calculated as its own separate sign. So that's the way that's dealt with on that side of the building. And on the front of the building, we have, this is facing North Ave, we have the Albrecht, Buick, and GMC, all within this black band. And we have included the entire black band as signage. So that's 446 square feet. The final signage aspect that is being proposed is a freestanding sign out on North Ave. This meets the sign bylaw. So there's no relief required for that. So the way Jim calculated this, and I'm going to bring up his memo. A typical nice job. So this kind of shows, this is how the total signage allowed on the site is determined under the old bylaw. You take a look at the frontage on North Ave, which this is a very large site, so it has 281.82 feet of frontage. Then you take a look at the setback of the building from North Ave, which is 161.64. So the total allowed sign area for the entire site is 2 square feet times the frontage, which is 563.64. That's what's allowed on the site. The freestanding sign is 40 square feet. Where it's located and the size of it is allowed, as I mentioned. There's no relief needed for that. On the North Ave side, that big, the big box area, if you will, that black area where all the sign is 46 square feet. That exceeds the allowed pretty significantly. Only 50 square feet is allowed. And it's also longer than 2/3 of the wall of the building because it goes the entire front of the building. On the 128 side, the all brick sign exceeds, it's 64, so it's over that 50. And only one occupancy sign is allowed. So the Buick sign is an additional one, and that's 108, that black area, which says Buick GMC. And again, there's only one allowed, so there's relief required for that. The traffic control sign, which is a certified service, is allowed. It meets the requirements under the bylaw. So as far as the total square footage, when you add all our signage up, we have 676.95, 563.64 is allowed. And so these are the items that we're seeking a relief sign variance for. When you look at where the applicant is agreeing that that whole area is signage, I think if you deem that it's appropriate for the building, I think it's really a benefit, because if the applicant did not deem that to be all signage or agree to that, they could put other signs up that would probably not look as good and be under the total requirement. What drags us over that total requirement, and not by much, is the fact that we are agreeing to the fact that those entire areas are calculated as signage. So we would entertain a condition that those areas are all calculated for signage. It doesn't mean that we can add signage to that black area. So we can only put up the lettering and signage within that area that's shown on the plan. So it's not an open ticket to say, hey, that's our signage. We've got, 446 feet. We can put whatever writing we want in there. We're not looking to do that. The other thing I wanted to bring to the board's attention, these are internally illuminated signs, which are allowed and typical for a dealership. Under your bylaw, they are not allowed to be illuminated between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. That's a part of our bylaw that prohibits that. So they're allowed to be illuminated except for between those hours. So with this presented, we are respectfully requesting a finding that we applied for, and then we have a separate application for the sign variance to allow the signage as is presented on the sign plan, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to answer any questions, and if I can't, I'm sure Jim will.
We also got an updated site plan. Is that just to account for the sign? You went through the sign package, but the site plan
Yes.
we also got, are there any
Yeah,
updates
there's-
that you want to
yeah.
present or just highlight, or is it?
I can do
Just-
that. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep, there is one. So I'll bring that up. Let me see.
I see proposed elevations dated May 4th. So maybe is it just that sheet maybe?
Yeah, it's sheet A3.
Yeah.
Let me find that.
It's near the end. It's the last
Thanks.
couple of
Thank you,
pages.
Dave. Appreciate that. There you go. Let's see. Oh, did I bring up the old one? I think I brought up the old one.
Well, you're not sharing anything yet, but
Yeah, hold on. Oh, no, here it is. Here it is. I'm sorry about that. Just talking to myself. Here you go. Yeah, this is sheet A3,
right.
and he updated that to reference to match what's in the sign plan on the sign panel area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense. All right. But the rest of the plan, just for board
Because
members.
before he had those as individual signs. So we just wanted the site plan to be consistent with the sign plan.
Makes sense. And that's the way we would want it.
Yeah.
All right. Any other comments or questions on this one, board members?
Oh,
And
no,
thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jim, for doing the math.
So,
One other question I have is just, what else is considered? If can you guys remind me on auto dealerships? Balloons, flags, gummy bears floating in the wind. None of that is allowed, right?
I would have to look at the original code to see whether those are restricted. And I can look at that off screen for a moment. But let me tell you that as much as I'd like to have this meet all requirements, and that's why Brian has to go this path, is it doesn't seem like this sort of business is really taken care of by the code in an appropriate manner. So normally you wouldn't expect to ask for so much. But when you've got this sort of building and you know what the standard garage is or car business is, this is what everybody has, this sort of operation basically. And so I don't know when the code was written, but it might have been a downtown, Chevy dealership or something like that when it was written, for all I know. But so in going through it, I just came up with what he'd asked for basically to be appropriate to this type of business. But while you guys are talking,
Yeah, I'm fine with the signage, and I don't know if there's a way we can do it, but it seems to me, and I didn't have a chance to look it up, but I seem to remember that car dealerships are not allowed to do that type of thing, and there's a lot of that happening. So I don't know how we can tie into that they also meet all other, because that's kind of signage and advertising and everything else. So
yeah, and we got these not dealerships so much as used car dealerships basically, which they like the flags, they like the guy with the blower at the bottom inflating him and waving away and all the rest of that stuff. Yeah, I agree with you.
So I just want to make sure they adhere to, if we grant them all this relief, which I don't think is I would agree that it's appropriate to grant this relief, that they adhere to, David, I don't know how we say it, that they adhere to the rest of the bylaws correctly.
Isn't that a question of enforcement, though? You always have to adhere to the bylaw of the law, and then it should be enforced too. Yes, if someone isn't adhering to it, just like if someone's not adhering to a law, the police take care of it. If someone isn't adhering to part of the bylaw, the zoning enforcement officer, whether he send a request or something, but someone has to enforce it.
Good point.
Yeah, no, I agree, Greg. Yeah, Chip, it's hard we can't really condition that they do what they're supposed to do, but yeah, it becomes enforcement.
But
But
I'd like to.
I know.
I mean, you have to anyways. It doesn't do anything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
well, I didn't know if it helped. I didn't know if there was a little hammer that went along with it, Greg.
Well, I think that came up like the one up on Bay State, right? Wasn't there some signage that was going in and they had to stop, right? They've come before us for rebranding and so forth, but then it was eventually the thing that they were doing with, I think, signs on the highway had to stop, and they have. So they had to follow the other parts, even though they weren't part of any of our decisions, right?
I think it was the lift with the vehicle on it, Dave.
I thought it was some signage.
They also had like they had the lit sign out
Yeah,
in front in their corner.
Right, sale or something comes,
Yeah.
yeah.
And if it's the lift with the vehicle, then Brian may have just timed out, I think, a client, because the lift with the vehicle is definitely still there. I recognize it every time coming out.
Yeah.
coming
Yeah,
down.
That was
the-
allowed by right. I forgot that.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
But anyway, we digress. So
There-
they would
there
have to
is-
follow.
Okay.
There is a section called prohibited devices. It's section 190-78. No signs or lights shall move, flash, make noise. This shall include commercial balloons, devices, high-powered searchlights, colored lights, illuminated signs, employing colors and use of a traffic signal. Lights are prohibited within a view of a signal intersection. Any imitation official traffic signs or signals or use of such words as stop, look, danger, go slow, caution, warning are prohibited. No red or green lights are affecting the utilizing the color should be used on any sign in opinion of the chief police, and the light and lighting would create a hazard. So they don't want anything to look like it's a stop or go and confuse people at an intersection.
Yeah.
And then portable signs with or without replaceable lights, which may be moved from one location to another, shall be prohibited. So I think to your point, Chip, there is at least in the first part of it,
Commercial
basically
balloon.
speaks to your balloons and stuff like that.
All right, but I think to Greg's point that it's an enforcement issue as much as it is anything else. So I guess, or wait, are we ready for anything, Mr. Chairman?
I was gonna open up once more to the public, but if board members, you're okay, other than enforcement of other things? All right, so if any member of the public wishes to ask a question about the information we've received tonight, please raise your hand in the Zoom meeting at this time. Seeing no hands, will close it to public testimony. So yes, we potentially ready
You want
for a
the
motion.
Finding first before the variance or the variance before the finding?
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
All right, so, Mr. Chairman, I move that we find under Article 9, Section 190-50B of the Wakefield zoning bylaw that the proposed changes, extensions, and/or alterations to the existing non-conforming building structures or use as an automobile dealership at 810 to 1840 North Ave, as shown on the plans prepared by Allen and Major Engineering, cover sheet dated May 5th, 2023, are not substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming use to the neighborhood.
Seconded.
Any discussion? The site plan has been updated, revised through May 5th. But other than that, yes, I think the rest of it stands. But we'd note that in the decision anyway. Any other discussion? Okay, regular voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes,
Tom,
Yes,
and I vote yes, so that's unanimous.
So now for the variance. Mr. Chairman, I move to grant the sign variance under Article 12, Section 80 of the Wakefield zoning bylaw with the relief, and this is where it gets as detailed in the memorandum prepared by board member Jim McBain, allowing the internally lit signage as shown on the sign plan package prepared by AGI. So that whole memorandum that we just went through with all the square footage and all of that. That's what I would consider to be the variance. And so that those signs and only those signs as presented on that plan and package.
Seconded.
Any discussion on that motion? Okay, same voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
yes,
Tom,
yes.
and I vote yes, so that's unanimous. So Brian, do we have electronically everything that is up to what was presented tonight?
You do.
Okay, except Jim's memo. Or did we get that? Did we get Jim's memo?
no, you didn't. Brian's got it.
Okay, so we need the memo. And also where there's a site plan dealer sign package. You were going through those changes with those measurements, right? Brian?
Yes. I submitted that on Friday.
Was that part of the memo?
That was part of what I submitted to you on Friday.
The memo wasn't there with it, though.
The memo wasn't there.
Right.
No, but what's in the file is dated 2022. It doesn't show those dimensions that you said.
No,
it
you
now.
got that via a PDF on Friday. You don't have a printed copy of that unless you printed it out.
Oh, okay, no, I have what's in the file. So
Yeah, you have the original filings in the file, so you're gonna need printed.
hard copies.
Yeah,
Hard copies for those. Yeah. Okay, no, that's what I was trying to reconcile,
Yeah.
because I was stamping things as I usually do and realized, yeah, that didn't agree with what we just saw. So, all right, so
What's
just,
the, Mr. Chair, what was the application date on that? Do you have that?
Yep. Clocked in March 14th.
Okay, this time. Okay, trying to make sure there was no issue with time. There's plenty of time.
Okay,
And my memo is revised as of May 9th. There's a previous one to that until I got the new set of drawings, so that's revised May 9th. Just for the record.
And that's what I just emailed to you, Mr. Chair, that one. Yep,
okay,
you have that. I sent it to Gail.
okay, and then we'll just need hard copies for the file as well
Yes.
of that final plan. Okay. All right, I just want to make sure we closed on that, but it is approved as noted. So thank you. for Updates and thank you, Jim, again.
Thank you.
All right. All right, on to new hearings. Case 23-80. Nathaniel D. and Elizabeth H. Ferreira at 33 Emerson Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Attorney Brian McGrail here on behalf of the Ferreiras, 33 Emerson Street. They are on here somewhere. And also with me tonight is Steve DeFuria of Phoenix Architects. They are the architectural firm on this. So I'm going to start, and then Steve will share his plans. But this is a pretty straightforward, I think, finding. Building inspector wanted this to come before the board. What they're doing, the deficiency of this lot, it's in the general residence zoning district. So the deficiencies of this lot are basically the frontage and the lot width, because they both need to be 80. The frontage is only 71, and it only goes to 77. So the lot doesn't meet the lot width, especially through the structure and where the addition will be created. And I think this is a fairly straightforward finding from the perspective of the fact that it's a two-family house. It currently has two residential units. It's in the general residence district where that's an allowed use, a two-family house. The one of the units is up on the third floor where there's a kitchen. There's access, but it's not as is common in houses of this era. It's not what it should be. And being responsible, the Ferreiras want to put an addition on, and part of that is to create current code compliant access to all of the units. And Phoenix has designed this in a very good way, because as you can see, we're not creating any more new nonconformities. The side setbacks in the general residence district are 10 feet. We're meeting all of that. We're not impacting the rear setback. It's not even close. We're not changing the front setback. That's non-compliant as it is also. We're as far as building coverage goes, we meet the zoning on what's being proposed. In minimum open area, we're meeting the zoning. So it's a pretty straightforward finding. I would argue that it's a first prong, that we're not intensifying any existing nonconformities or creating new ones. But I always ask for that second finding, the first finding that we're not intensifying or increasing, and then the second finding that in any event, even if one were to find that, it wouldn't be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. With that said, I'm going to hand it over to Steve. And Steve, if you could just run the board through the architectural changes to the building and why they're occurring. Would you do that, please?
Yep, not a problem, Brian. For the record, Steve DeFuria representing Phoenix Architects. So I'll start just with the existing. So as Brian mentioned, it's an existing two-family house. There's only one means of egress that's currently there right now. You can see where my cursor is. So the unit one services the first floor and the second floor. And then the second unit is up on the third floor, and all of that's generated through this central staircase here. So you come up the set of stairs, you're in the hallway, then there's a door separating the second floor from the third floor, separating that unit. So what we are proposing is adding a second means of egress. So taking some space in the front of that first floor unit, that becomes a second means for the unit up on the third floor, creating some mudroom space, set of stairs going up to the second floor. And then also architecturally, what we're adding for the main unit is a 3-season room off the back. It's about 17 by 16 additional living space for that unit. That also serves the second means of egress out from the unit up on the third floor. Upstairs, you can see now, here's that set of stairs coming up from the mudroom. You're contained inside a space here, so you can go all the way up to the third floor without going through the other unit. And then you can see the spiral staircase off of the 3-season room off the back. So spiral going up to the third floor for the second means of egress, and then the spiral off to the side here, which you can see on the site plan that indents out, just takes us down to grade. And then jumping up to the third floor, which is the second unit. Now you're up, and this stair will take you all the way down to the first floor out. And then in the living room off the back here is the second means of egress. Walk out a door, providing them a 6-foot platform here, and then a spiral down to the platform of the 3-season room, and then takes you down the grade. And then I'll just run through the elevations quickly. You can see the spiral staircase off to the side, parapet that's surrounding beyond, that'll sort of enclose the spiral stair at the top. Looking at it from the left side, again, you can start to see the flat roof of the 3-season room and the parapet, and then the spiral going up to the third floor. So that's the left elevation. This is the view off the rear. Again, second means of egress coming down, and then you come down to grade, and then the right elevation here. So essentially what we're doing is just enhancing the condition of the 2-unit, providing the 2 means of egress instead of the 1 open egress that's there now.
Steve, do exterior stairs need to be covered?
I believe they don't have to, but I can double check that for you. I don't believe so.
I'm trying to remember, we had a couple, it may have been commercial as compared to residential.
No, it was residential, and I think one was Phoenix had been involved in some years back, and then there was another one that was a 3-family or something like that, where there was a wood stair coming off the side.
And what did we end up with, Jim? They don't have to be covered?
I don't remember where Jack landed on that. I know that my experience has been to cover them, basically stop them from getting snow or ice on them, basically. So people that are using that second means of egress have at least a possibility of making it. But there again, the code has changed quite a bit across the United States, where there used to be local codes or state codes, basically. So I'm not clear on it anymore.
Well, nonetheless, it's not a zoning thing. It's a building code
It's a
thing.
building code,
If it
yeah.
comes to that, if it comes to that, but.
Sorry, thank you, Dave. That's good clarification.
Okay. Any other comments, questions on the requested finding? It seems to meet both, certainly the first prong for me, but I'm happy to, entertain a motion for both prongs. If nothing, I'll open up the public. Anyone have a comment or question about this application? Please raise your hand at this time in the Zoom meeting. I see one hand up. Joanne Schooler. Please state your name and address for the record, ma'am.
Hi. Joanne Schooler, 51A Chestnut Street. I'm in a butter. And it looks to me like the deck is new in the back. Is that right?
It is, yeah, this deck here.
Is that extending the house further back than it is currently? Or is that where a porch is now?
So there is I'll go to the existing, because that'll help. So there's a landing that's here now with a set of stairs going down. We're essentially maintaining that depth there, carrying it all the way across. And then there's a screened-in porch here that we're extending. I don't know the dimension of the existing screen porch, but that'll go a little bit further into the backyard, but the deck does not.
Okay, so there's an extension on the screened-in porch.
Steve, can you give me the screen for a minute?
Yeah.
I think Joanne, I think my picture will show it better. My site plan. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is a screened-in porch that Steve is talking about, existing screen porch to be removed, and then the addition goes further out to the back.
Oh, okay.
It's 106 feet from the rear lot line. And then Joanne, this kind of shows you the deck that Steve was talking about with the stairs going down,
Mm-hmm.
and then it now becomes the red line.
Oh, okay.
If that helps, you can see it.
So does it show where the line is, where the house ends now, where the porch ends? No.
Yeah, this is the deck right here where my cursor is, see it?
Yeah.
That small deck,
Oh, okay.
all right? And
Yeah,
then-
Brian, the X, just to jump in, the X
Yep.
with the grayed out X with the screen porch off the back is the existing footprint now. Where the back of the screen porch is
Oh,
and then
that's,
the red.
yeah, that's the screen porch, yeah.
Oh, okay.
There's
So,
a-
so the additional extension here, is that 20 feet more than what?
No,
No,
No.
it's 20 feet, Joanne, off the back of the main house. So
Okay.
probably just from that graphic, you're probably looking at an additional 10 feet off the back from that screen porch.
Okay. Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, seeing no other hands, we'll close it to public testimony. So back to the board.
I move that we find, given the, keep it right there for a second, no, given the plans that we've shown this evening as dated 5/9/1922, regarding 33 Emerson Street, that the additions and that are being proposed are not more detrimental to the neighborhood. However, if they found that they are, that they would deem, that the additions do not enhance the nonconformity. However, if they were found that they did, they would also be found not to be more detrimental to the neighborhood.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? Regular voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right, so that's unanimous. Finding granted.
thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome, thanks for your patience tonight. Moving right along. Case 23-81, James and Rochelle Owens at 1 Harrison Lane, sorry.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair. Attorney Brian McGrail here on behalf of James and Rochelle Owens. They're joining me on the Zoom, and I'm kind of flying solo on this. This is, again, is a finding, no variance required for an addition that they would like to do on their single-family home at 1 Harrison Lane. Going to find the first plan here. I'm going to first bring up an existing conditions site plan. So Harrison Lane is kind of like a dead end street. It's in Greenwood. I'm sorry, it's off of Salem Street. My apologies, as you're heading kind of near Colby Lane. You go over the railroad tracks. So if you're coming from downtown, you go through the intersection of Vernon Street, heading towards Salem Street and Lowell Street, and it's on your left-hand side. Basically it's a dead end street off of Salem. And the Owens are way down at the end. This is their property. at number 1. And this is their existing house. So you can see they already have a deck here. They have an existing shed that's been there forever, that's on, virtually right on the property line. And so that gives you an idea of what the existing conditions are. And the proposed. This is the proposed, the shed comes out and they're looking to put a modest addition onto the house. Now, the house already doesn't meet the setback requirements, so this does require a finding on the second prong because it does intensify an existing nonconformity. And that is really all they're looking for. We do have a zoning table here. And as far as it's in the single residence zoning district. So the lot size required is 12,000 square feet. It's legal non-conforming at 10,877. The frontage 100 is required, again, legal non-conformity at 65.12. Front setback is it's non-conforming, 15 is required, 20 is required. And they meet that requirement easily. It's set pretty far back from the street at 83 and change. The minimum side, this is where the relief is needed. As you can see, currently on this side, the existing is 9.8. It does not meet the 15, but they're going to go further in, but the shed is going to come out. So it will go to 5.9. So that's the intensification of the existing nonconformity, which requires a second prong finding that it wouldn't be substantially more detrimental. Rear setback is 25 required. 45 is existing. It's going to go a little bit closer, but staying well in compliance at 40. And building coverage 30%. It's going from 10 to 15. And minimum open area is 40. They already have 75, and they're still going to have 72 at the end of the day. There's no setback changes on the other side of the house, as you can see. As far as architecturally what they're proposing, I can show you that so you get a flavor. And I think the easiest view on this, because they're separate plans, is to bring them up kind of side by side. So first, second. Geez. So this is the existing, and the addition is going to go on the side. So if you can just take a focus on this and how far this goes out with the front of the house. And then I'm going to shift. And this is a proposed. So it shows it going out. Now this says 12-foot expansion. It's not a 12-foot expansion. It's 12 feet from the house, but as you may recall, there was already a portion of, I'm sorry, 10 feet. It's 12. It shows 12 feet from kind of this portion, and there was already the existing condition went out far. So you've got to go back to the site plan, and the site plan clearly shows this little bump out is already here. So it's, as you can see, it's 12 feet from the body of the house, not 12 feet from the existing house. See that 12 feet? Blow it up.
So the proposed addition is going out to the edge of the deck area that currently exists there.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
We're also before the Conservation Commission. That is going well, and I think they wanted, we have a wetland specialist that's dealing with that. And his comment to me was the Conservation Commission wants to make sure you're all set before they close out.
Okay.
There's also there's also a covered porch in the back, which is part of this. You can see it, but it has no impact on the rear setback. It still meets the requirement.
Okay.
But try to show you that elevation. We'll probably be here for another half an hour.
It's okay. I've seen enough. I don't know if the board members, we have the
Just-
package, so.
One question, because I had my head down looking at Google Earth. Are you adding a second story to that, to the addition to, I guess, it's one story right now, right? Looks
Hang on,
like.
Greg, let me do this. It's probably easier. Anyway. For the proposed.
And I guess just while we're waiting, because the reason I ask is it is a little bit more than coming a few feet closer. It's a few feet closer, I think, from what I saw. And adding another story that's overlooking neighbors' property, essentially.
So let me do this, Greg, and just for full disclosure to the board, I'm gonna bring up all of the existing conditions plans so you can see them. You see them now, guys?
Yeah.
You can. Okay, so this is the existing deck that Jim's talking about. Okay. This is the existing second floor. You're right, Greg. There's nothing here, right? That's what you're pointing to.
I think so, yeah.
Yep, okay, so I just want to kind of follow, right? So there's
Yep,
that.
yep, definitely, okay.
Yep, and then this is the right side elevation. So this is kind of from that side, if you will, right? That's what bumps out now. And this is the rear, the existing rear. And now, so with your permission, I'll now go to what's being proposed so you can get a full flavor of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Greg, it appears as though that they're going 4.5 feet, 4'4" or something like that beyond the current edge of that bump on that side of the building.
So here's what's being proposed now. And you're gonna see, yeah, so it goes, it kind of goes up in the back. It's,
Yeah, so I know they're going only 4 feet closer, but it's more than just going a little bit closer with what's there
This-
now. It's closer with essentially another.
This is what you're
half
talking-
story to a story. Yeah, so it's not just a little bit closer.
yeah.
There will be sort of sight lines into the neighbor's yard and all that stuff. So it is a little bit more than just, oh, we're going 4 feet closer.
Understood.
So I guess a question, I mean, obviously they got notice, but usually you have something about, we talked to the neighbors and here's this, signatures. Did you do that this time?
No, I never really do that without a variance required because, I don't know if they hear or not.
Yeah.
But they
No,
did.
understood, but it is a little bit more than just, I know we talk about on other projects that require variances, sight lines into people's yards and all that stuff. I get that this is only a finding, but it's almost the same circumstance.
Yeah, and you're absolutely correct, except in some of those cases, the resolution is to have windows up high, which looks like what they did in 2 levels in this. They at least considered that, which we would normally discuss, either no windows or something at high that just allows light in, but not viewing.
Yeah, this is Jim Owens, the homeowner. That's absolutely correct. The second level windows are high windows to let light in. We actually have windows currently which offer line of sight into our neighbor's yard and our second floor. This new second floor set of windows would not. So we have less of a line of sight into the neighbor's yard than we do now.
Got it. Thank you.
Mhm.
That was it.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay. So we'll open up to the public at this time. If anyone has a comment or question about this application, please raise your hand in the Zoom meeting at this time. Seeing no hands, we'll close it to public testimony. So for this one, Brian, again, just to be clear, Chip or whoever's gonna, both prongs are needed. Because
Really just a second, really just a second prong. It's not, it does intensify the existing.
It does. Well, we would find, yeah, it is intensifying. And
Yeah, you need to find that. That's true. You do need to find that. Yeah.
So, Mr. Chairman, I move that we find that the addition being proposed as presented to us this evening does intensify the nonconformity of the lot by coming closer to the side yard setback on the side that the addition is being put at. But however, that the increased intensity is not more detrimental to the neighborhood.
Seconded.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? All right, regular voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes,
and I vote yes. So that's unanimous. Finding granted.
Thank you.
Okay. Last new hearing of the evening, 23-82, 360 Water Street Revocable Living Trust at 360 Water Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Attorney Brian McGill representing the applicant, the 360 Water Street Revocable Living Trust. With me tonight is Lisa Iacoviello, who is one of the trustees, and Eamon Watt is also here, who is also a trustee of the trust and the owner of the property at 360 Water Street. Unfortunately, this is another fire application. As the board knows, I've had a few of these in the past few years that tragically Lisa and Eamon lost their house in January of 2021 to a catastrophic fire that was a total loss. And they had to rebuild the property, which they're allowed to do, as you know. We all have experience in this now under our bylaw. They obtained a building permit to do that, and as they have built it, they're basically completed. But Ben asked us to. He's satisfied with everything that's been done, but he asked us to look at two things on this because of the significant unique topography of the lot. He said, I want you to look at the height just to make sure, because I don't want these folks to have an issue later on in life if they go to sell it, to make sure it's compliant, and if not, to seek relief on it. And then at the same time, this house, because of it being basically built on ledge, doesn't have a basement. So you walk into a first floor, then there's a second floor, and then there's attic space. And so Eamon and Lisa decided that they wanted to finish the attic space, which they haven't done yet. They're waiting to finish that. But Ben said, before I let you do that, you would need a variance to finish it because it would be deemed to be a third story in a single residence district, even though it has no impact on the outside. So what we did is, on the first issue on the height, they hired Paul Finocchio, and Paul went out and shot multiple elevations. And I think before I get into that, I think maybe the best thing that I could do is show you some photographs of the house, because it will give you an idea of the topography that I'm talking about and what Paul faced when he went out here. Okay. Can you see that photo?
We see your inbox.
But not the photo?
No.
Okay, here it comes. Now you see it?
Yes.
Okay, so you can see what I'm talking about, ledge. This is basically built on the ledge. There's virtually no neighbors here. You'll see another photo in a minute. This location on Water Street is, if you're heading from downtown, from Main Street towards the high school, towards Farm, it's not far from Farm Street on the left-hand side. It sits up on the ledge hill. So you know the used car dealership on Water Street that's kind of in the middle of nowhere on the right-hand side? It's kind of across from that, but a little bit further down. So that's one photo, but you can see how Paul, determining the height of this based on trying to get the average finished grade was, he was climbing all over rocks to do it. And another photo that might be helpful. You can see how this house just sits on the ledge. And this is the driveway going up off of water, but unique, certainly probably the most unique topography the board has ever seen. Or maybe that I've ever seen at least. So that gives you an idea. And now I'm going to bring up Paul's plan to show you his analysis. And I'm going to send, he made a change to this, Mr. Chair, from what I submitted. So I'm going to send this to you after the hearing.
From the one that's in the file?
Yeah, because what he did, I sent one on Friday because what he did is because it's already been built, he put required and existing. And don't forget, the house itself was rebuilt based on the fact that it was catastrophic fire. So the only thing that we need a variance on, I'm going to go through these anyway. So it meets the lot area, meets the frontage, it meets the front setback. The side it doesn't meet, it didn't before, so Ben was fine with that. The right side it meets, just as it was, in the rear it meets that too. Paul came up with a calculation of the height of 36 feet 6 inches. So it's over by 1.5 feet. So we're seeking relief to fix that. I think the unique topography certainly justifies that. And then the stories, if we'd like to finish the third story, so it would be a 3-story house. So we would need a variance for the height and to allow a 3rd story in a residential district. And that is the request.
Brian, was it built on the same foundation or was that?
Same, Eamon, can you touch on that?
It is built, it's on a slab that's
Slab,
basically
same.
on top of a huge rock.
The same
Maybe.
slab.
Yeah, the same slab. Yeah, nothing was altered in the footprint, if that
Yeah.
helps.
Yeah.
We actually stepped it in on the 2nd floor 3 feet to actually make it 15 feet just by ourselves. Ben didn't ask for that, but we did shorten the house to bring it up to the 2nd floor on this side, on your left side there.
It doesn't show.
Yeah, but in this area.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
In this case, Mr. Chair, I sent it in today. I think I sent you the neighbor support.
Yes,
So,
this is from the Hayes at
yes,
364 Water Street. Supporting the proposed request.
yeah, I'll bring that up.
So Brian, this is a variance request, right?
That's right, Mr. Tabell. So the Hayes are the ones, if you face the house, they're the ones near the driveway. So they have, really not a big view, but if anybody has a view, they have. The other neighbors are, you really can't even see it. So. So as far as, if I may just touch on the variance standards, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
So we certainly have unique circumstances in the form of unique topography. As far as a hardship goes, this was rebuilt after a fire, and on top of that, they tried to meet the standards of the height, but and Ben kind of anticipated they might have a problem with that, and that's why he asked us to look at it. Paul said he did his best on this, but it's a very difficult calculation because there's so much rock and depending on where you get the point. And to credit to Paul, he's being honest. He's a licensed surveyor. He said, my professional opinion, you're a little bit over, and I've got to disclose that. So that's why we're here for the record to fix that. So certainly, I think there's a hardship in that area. And then as far as the 3rd story goes, because they can't have a basement and they can't finish a basement, that 3rd story, which doesn't increase the height of the house, they're just within the eaves. It allows them to utilize that space where they can't have a basement because of the unique topography. And as far as detrimental effect on the neighborhood, there is none. You really can't see it, and anyone that could see it is this neighbor who supports.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, board members? Okay, we'll open up to the public testimony on this. I don't see any too many members of the public left, but we will open it up in case there is anyone here. If you do have a comment or question, please raise your hand in the Zoom meeting at this time. Seeing no hands, we'll close with the public testimony.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we grant the variance as presented to us by the information that Paul Finocchio in his survey found as possible and difficult as it was to determine the actual height of the building based on the topography. So based on the topography, shape of the lot, and the way the house sits on the rock, I move that we grant the variance for a height requirement and allow them to put a third floor into their, because they can have no basement, allow them to finish the third floor as they deem appropriate.
Seconded.
Any discussion on the motion? All right, regular voting members, Chip?
Yep.
Joe?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So that too is unanimous. Variance granted.
Thank you.
Very much.
Well, good luck to both of you. Yes, and thanks for your
Thank you
patience.
very much.
Sure.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we did the other matters up front. Brian, I think we are all set. We have a couple other administrative things, but thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Appreciate it.
Have a good night.
You too.
Item 5, board members, any clerk of board comments?
I got a couple.
Okay, Joe?
Well, Monday's town meeting, I don't know if you guys are going. The bylaw review committee's got a couple things up on the warrant, so I'll be there.
Okay.
And then.
Anything that warrants discussion or knowledge on our end?
Nah, it's mostly just word updates and changes, for the bylaw review. Nothing this time around crazy. We did have some zoning bylaw review, chapters 1, 5, and 10. I don't know if you guys got a chance to look at that. Did Dan send them over from last Monday's meeting?
Yeah, we got those in, Gail, I think it's in the ZBA mailbox, but they haven't been forwarded. We'll get those over to everybody.
Yeah, Brian's got a list of questions out. There's gonna be another meeting, I think June 5th, and then we're off for the summer until September, so.
Okay.
I think Dan will send out another email from the lawyer about that. If you guys want to take a look at them, send me your comments if you want. Brian's got, like I said, Brian's got a list. I trust his knowledge. I trust Brombowski's knowledge, so I don't really have too much to offer. You guys have been, dealing with this a lot longer than I have. So if you guys got some comments, I'll bring them to the table. You guys don't really have to be there for hours on end. If you guys want to send me something, that's fine. I can bring it up. I know Brian's still on the call. So Brian, if you want to, like you said, you got a list going too, right?
If I may, Mr. Chair, just for a second.
Yep, and when's the next meeting? Joe, you said June what?
I think June 5th, I believe. One more meeting until September.
Okay, June 5th, all right.
Yeah.
Just so if we get the information out to board members, I would just respectfully ask, if you have comments or questions, get them back to Joe or maybe circulate them to everybody. So we all have the same info, but just before that meeting so we can take it forward. Go ahead, Brian.
I appreciate the time. I just, thank you, Joe. And I just wanted to point out to the board, because I've been participating in this as a citizen, and some of the proposed changes are pretty significant. They're substantive, and the board should be aware of it. And as an example, on your nonconformities right now, as you're aware, we have findings in Wakefield, which, for homeowners are a 3-2 vote. And what has been proposed is to change it to a special permit process. So it's pretty significant and, you know, planning board.
With site plan review and everything?
Yeah, we could, it depends on how it's written, yeah. So at the hearing, you know, that's one of the comments that I made, a criticism of it, and I submitted that in the planning board, you know, because they have to have hearings on this, to their credit and to Joe's credit, because Joe, on behalf of your board, you know, voiced concerns on that. One of the members of the planning board, Jim Hogan, went on the record, he said, I don't support that. I don't, that's a pretty big change. So you know, that's going beyond a recodification. You know, that's a substantive change.
Policy.
Yeah, Greg. So, you know, I just want to, you know, put some of these things, and Joe's doing, you know, is right there, and kudos to you, Joe, for mentioning it, but look at this stuff, because there's stuff in there that's a little bit different, Greg.
So in these changes, will we see, so I'm admittedly probably not going to the meetings, being on this other subcommittee too, that is meeting through the summer every other week. Is there rationale, or is it just we propose this change? Like, will we be able to see why it's a proposed change, or who the proposed change, because are they all coming from this consultant, or is it just sort of sourced from whoever? And is the rationale we'll be able to see, or will we have to go to the meetings to understand the rationale?
It's basically, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, but his rationale is basically, hey, this is the way I propose, but you guys decide, you know.
I was going to say the same thing, Brian. I mean, I feel like he's been doing this so long. He's been getting away with it at all the other towns. So I figured maybe he's like, well, this is how it's been working the last couple of towns I did it. So why not here, right?
So
I guess as an example, Greg, to help you, you know, so like some of the changes are like verbatim Linfield.
Yeah, I mean, quite honestly, that
because I practice in Linfield, so when they recodified their bylaw, and the recodification on non-conforming would almost be like exactly what they have there. So I think it's a template, like, hey, here's what we do on non-conforming. And I'm not being critical. Some of the changes are like bringing us up to date on certain things, but like an example of another substantive changes is, you know, we have rights for reconstruction after fire, which has become a fact here. So like with the church, it was a big deal that there's no time limit on that in Wakefield. Well, now he's proposing to put a 2-year, or it's either a 2 or 3 year time limit on that.
And who is he, the lawyer or legal?
Yeah, the consultant that, you know, because what he does is he's reviewing our bylaw and he's editing certain sections and presenting those edits. And saying, here's how I would suggest that you might edit this section of the bylaw.
I mean, I guess my question, and maybe Joe, you can ask it for us, would every single time be why? And if he says, you know, maybe from my Navy days, I would never, this is the first thing they taught us, you never answer this question, is if he always just says, as Brian said, because that's the way we do it, that's not good enough. Give us a real reason why it's being updated. Does this, even modernization is one thing, but how's it really going to work? You know, how does this affect other areas of our bylaw? How does this affect actual applications that have come in front of us? You know, simply, well, this is how I practice, to me, isn't good enough.
Well,
You know-
one of the changes I think he made help me out, Brian, is I think the building inspector can do it on his own, like instead of coming to us. So wasn't that one of the changes, that instead of coming to the zoning board, that the building inspector can just approve it?
Yeah, what he did is he's defining on the first prong, like an intensification, he's basically saying certain things are not an intensification and they're entitled to a building permit. They don't have to come to the board. Which Benny has the power to do now. And you know what, I'll be honest, I think that is probably maybe a good thing. You know,
I
because
would agree with you there.
yeah, I mean, because and I'm talking myself out of business, but I think some of these simpler things, you know, the board might sometimes say, what are you doing here, right? And so I think that, you know, that could be a good thing. So that's a point, Greg, where you're spot on. It's like, well, yeah, that's a reason. There's a good reason for that, because it can save the homeowner some money. It can give the building inspector a playbook that he knows that if it meets this criteria. So the example would be, if you have a non-conforming lot, but you're not increasing a setback, and you know you're not intensifying, you're entitled to a building permit, something like that. For just, you know, and there might be like 3 examples of that. So There are,
You know,
you're right, Joe. So there are some things that, but that would be, that's the nonconformity that would be a special permit process, but in any event, that's just one example. So
All right, so yep, go ahead. Sorry, Brian.
I said, I was saying, I, as a citizen, I'm providing red lines and comments on all these, and, it's public record. I submitted it to the planning board. And I submitted it, I'm happy to submit it to your board, just so you can follow along and for yourself on what's being proposed. And, because I'm pointing out back to the bylaw committee, hey, this is beware, this affects this, or this changes this, or that changes that.
So while Brian was talking, board members, I went to our mailbox and forwarded you. So there was an email from the bylaw review committee with a few attachments, and then Brian's response with some red lines, as he mentioned. So on one of the sections. So please give them a look, and again, we can certainly discuss at the next meeting under this same topic if we want to share anything or review anything, and just make sure we're all on the same page. And that way, Joe's takeaway is representing us, or if others want to attend, they certainly can. We'll have an opportunity to review them before the next meeting in June. Okay.
But none of these are coming up at town meeting this time around, right?
No.
they want to do it all at once. They want to do this
Yeah.
all, in the next 2 years, and then write it again until it's finally approved, and then somehow pass it through the town, which I don't see happening, because they, town meeting, they just, when one word's changed, they go crazy. So I don't know how they're gonna change the whole.
Well, it was brought up at that first meeting. There's gonna have to be some
Reach.
some notification and reach and outreach on this with public hearings, and not just at the planning board, but some sort of workshops or public outreach that this is why we're doing it, and here's your opportunity ahead of town meeting to get a full understanding of what's being proposed, why we're doing it, so it all doesn't, get hashed out at town meeting and drag that thing out for, 3 nights. So, okay, so we'll do that. I see, Jim, your hand's up and Gail's hand's up. Okay, so Jim?
Yeah.
That could be a
Brian-
first.
Brian, knowing what the church has gone through, 4 years basically to actually put a shovel in the ground. If it goes to a 2-year interval, does that mean that you'd have to go to the board early to get basically that change? So it's 4 years? I mean, they went through, never mind the horror show of COVID and price changes, but it took them a year of mourning basically to even get a committee together to even talk about it. And they may be in dealing with insurance and everything else before they could even start to think about it. And there are going to be situations where that might happen, where someone's got a business or something like that burns to the ground, whatever. It seems like there ought to be a way that for certain circumstances, that some group, like the church, for instance, could plead basically poor and say, we can't do this in 2 years. Is that possible within what they're proposing?
Brian, you're on mute.
No, because these are my comments, and that was one of the things, like, he had reconstruction after catastrophe of voluntary demolition in one thing, which I didn't agree with. I made comments on that, but I'm sure they'll consider those. But basically, this is what it said. It was 3 years. It says reconstruction of said premises shall commence with construction, Jim, shall commence within 3 years after the catastrophe. So not going to the board, you've got to start construction or you lose it. So that, and so I made a point. I said, this time frame needs to match best. And I suggest the catastrophe and voluntary demolition should be separate sections with greater leeway for catastrophic occurrences. So that's just one example.
I mean, you know what it took to get from point A to point B.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it takes
guys,
a lot. Yeah.
Try to remember, these are just initial proposals, right? The bylaw committee is going to kick them
Agreed.
around. The
Yeah.
planning board's going to have public hearings. This is not
Agreed.
going to town meeting for a vote, Jim. So let's just take the time to review everything.
Yeah,
read the
and
feedback.
to everybody's credit, Joe, and I think you'll agree, you know, when comments have been made and of constructive criticism or ideas, they're well received.
Yeah, he's fine with it. He goes, I'll do
Yeah.
whatever you want.
Yeah,
He's
no,
fine.
yeah, and also very well received by the bylaw committee. You know, it's not like, but basically I'm just saying that everybody should keep their eye on this, because don't think it's just like, hey, we're just changing around some paragraphs to recodify what we have. There's some substantive issues in here.
Okay. Well, thanks, Brian. Appreciate your additional commentary and hanging on here.
I'll butt out. Sorry for interrupting.
No worries. No worries. Gail, did you have something else you wanted to
Yeah,
say?
no, I just wanted to say that Erin, Ben, Bill Renault, they're all gonna get together too, because they realize these are more changes than they thought were gonna be made, and they want to jump into, so they're gonna have a meeting or two.
Yeah. I mean, again, he's an expert in zoning and land use,
Mhm.
right? He's literally written the book on it and and updated it how many times, right, Brian? But so he knows his stuff, and he's done this for a lot of towns. So he knows what he's doing, and a lot of it, hopefully in the end, will make sense and will bring a lot of our bylaws up, and not just to standards, but even as we've adjudicated some things, we say, yeah, the way this is worded is ambiguous, or it conflicts with this other paragraph. Hopefully all that stuff gets sorted out along the way, but we just got to keep our eye, as Brian said, on the ball for substantive things like this, and maybe say, whoa, no, that may not work here. We'd like to keep it the way it is, or, whatever, right? They'll suggest things, and we just have to tell them what we think will or will not work.
Well, that's
And
why I
think-
wanted to bring it up. That's why I wanted to bring it up, because for me, that's his job to do this. So I figured he knows what he's doing. But I didn't want him to slip it through. If you guys didn't look at it, I'm just gonna assume it's, he
No,
wrote the
don't
book on it,
assume.
so-
Don't assume anything. We should definitely get copies of all this stuff, and everyone should take some time to review it. Because they're all going to have their different perspective. Your legal mind on it, Greg, and Mickey and others, right?
Yeah, honestly, I thought the review of this was not for policy changes and was for sort of minor updates or looking for those inconsistencies and stuff like that. I thought that was the understanding, obviously. So yeah, I appreciate knowing about this now.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and reread Bobrowski because I only read it 17 years ago, so.
Yeah, he gave a presentation. Let's see, there's a letter. I thought there was Joe, see if we can get I thought he gave a presentation that first meeting. Did everyone get a copy of that? I'm just wondering what I got it. I got his letter. March
You were
10th.
at the first meeting. That was April. We had what, beginning of April, then we had one in May, now we're having one in June, so.
No, I have a letter from him dated March that I think he sent to the committee. But no, there was a presentation because they went over sort of the scope, and I thought there was some slides or something that either he presented or bylaw. There was something shared, and I just don't have a copy of it.
I might be, if I find it, Dan might have shared it with me. I might be able to
Okay.
find something.
Yeah, whatever materials there. I think I had suggested having a website and having all this stuff get posted somewhere so it's generally consumable. I don't know if they've thought about putting that up. I thought it was for this that I suggested a public site.
I think you did. I don't think it's up yet, but I can talk
Yeah.
to Dan.
No, because then everything's there, right? Each presentation, each meeting, the minutes, these proposals, and then, as it evolves over time, because there's going to be different sections. What we have now sent to us is like 3 sections.
Yeah, and he's changing the section numbers too, so it's no longer 190, it's 1, 5, and 10, so.
Oh, boy.
That's all getting changed. So, beware, because I was at one point, I was confused. He was at section 10, I couldn't even find it.
Yeah. All right. All right. So any other topics, board members, other comments, projects, questions? Go ahead.
Mine would be a lot quicker. The different subcommittee, we're more at the starting. It's the MBTA communities subcommittee. So we've met, I think only twice. We had our most recent one canceled. We're trying to determine at this point sort of where we should place them. I guess back up a little bit. If you remember, we have to have a certain area around our MBTA stations that certain multifamily is allowed by right. and where certain density is allowed by right. So right now, we're sort of looking at where, if those area or areas should be, to the point where we're even looking at sort of part of the, I guess you call it the south end of the town is by the Melrose, is it Melrose Highlands, whatever the first station into Melrose is, to see if we should spread it out a little bit. And then we're working with Ezra on this one, is the consultant, and he's been awesome. He's really good. This seems to be, he's really good at Chapter 40B. He's even better at this stuff. So right now we skipped the last meeting because Ezra and Erin have now taken our feedback from the first two meetings and are sort of playing with this, I guess you'd call it sort of calculator that the state put out to see what size certain areas would look like with certain density. So we're sort of at the beginning of the stage. So we're just looking right now on where and how big this areas will be. And then after that we'll likely get into, what sort of restrictions, because we can put some restrictions on this. Multifamily has to be allowed by right, but we still can do site plan review. So that'll be the second step.
Okay. Yeah, I think one initial drawing, I looked like they were looking at an area in Greenwood and or an area, around the North Ave. And it could be either or. It doesn't
It could be
necessarily
either
have to
or,
be-
it could be both. But
Yeah.
If it's two, a certain percentage of it has to be in each one or something like that. So, and those initial ones, if you did see any initial ones, were sort of just, I think it was engineering department or something, just so we had something to work with, just kind of took the station and drew it. So those were no rhyme or reason to them. That was just so we could sort of start from somewhere and sort of understand where we are. So.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for the update, Greg. Sure. Any questions from other board members there? Okay. Anything else?
The only other question I have is, because I go by it every day, has the project on Foundry Street stopped? Does anyone know?
Gail?
Yeah, it was,
I mean, there's been nothing for
it
a
was,
long time
it's for sale.
now. Okay.
Yeah,
Is it?
Paul DiBiase is supposed to be taking it over. He's done some projects here in Wakefield. He's really good. And yeah, he's gonna be buying it from Melanson. He's in the process.
Interesting.
Yeah, it went fast and all of a sudden it stopped, and it's been stopped for like a year, but there's actually like pickup trucks still in there and stuff. So it's,
Mm.
Yeah.
It will
He
start soon, I
He
think.
bought those too.
yeah. But the land as is.
Well, and of the three on Salem Street, right, one's looks like it's nearing completion. One seems to have activity when I drive by and the other one doesn't. So I'm not sure what's going on with that one either, but the one closest to the Pleasant Street. So anyway. All right. Anything else?
The gas station's actually, I think, closing this weekend, because I got the letter through school. On Lowell Street, the gas station.
All four corners. Yeah.
I think they're closing the station this weekend and then start construction.
And the guy that runs that auto inspection basically has gone over to Broadway.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's always, want to see the stuff we've approved actually get going. All right. If there's nothing else, item 6, approval of minutes of April 26th.
I move that we approve the minutes of April 26th.
Seconded.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor, Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Mickey? It says aye with a thumbs up.
Yes.
Kasumi? Aye, Kasumi approves as well. Thank you, and I approve. Well done, Gail.
It's all before 10 o'clock too.
Yes, indeed. Motion returns always in
Move
order.
that we adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? Didn't think so. All in favor? Aye. All right, good evening, everyone. This meeting
Good
is
night.
adjourned. We'll talk to y'all soon. Take care.
Night.